Bits of information trickled out slowly over the course of the Iraq War and the years following. Now, nearly 2 decades after the CIA fabricated the intelligence that led us into war with Iraq, a fuller picture of the horrors of CIA black sites has been assembled. One prisoner, 49-year-old Abu Zubaydah, the first person to be subjected to the torture program approved by President George W. Bush, has provided drawings of what he experienced at a CIA black site in Thailand. Zubaydah, who was captured because the CIA mistakenly thought he was a top al-Qaeda lieutenant, describes waterboarding, which he endured 83 times, being crammed into a tiny confinement box meant to break his resolve, chained in so-called stress positions for hours. For example, his wrists being chained so high that he had to stand on tiptoes. He also depicts being hooded, chained in the fetal position, and tethered to a cell bar to prevent movement. He describes a process known as walling, in which the prisoner has his head banged into a wall, and when he falls down, he's dragged back up to his feet by a plastic wrapped towel around his neck. Another drawing shows a larger confinement box, pitch black, with the prisoner chained in a seated position over a bucket which was meant to serve as a toilet. Zubaydah also describes being deprived of sleep for 2 to 3 weeks at a time, kept awake by having water thrown on him and being chained in painful positions. This is the legacy of the CIA during the Iraq War and for years after. Cruel, inhumane torture, approved by the very highest authority in the country after the CIA fabricated the reasons for invading Iraq in the first place. Today, the CIA claims they no longer torture human beings. Instead, they're known to train non-Americans to do it for them, to maintain their plausible deniability. The CIA trains, observes, and provides equipment to foreign agents who are less constrained by public outcry. The torture continues, but now the CIA can claim that they're not the ones doing it. The question you're probably thinking is, why? Why would our country allow this organization to exist? It clearly doesn't protect freedom and democracy like Reagan claimed. The answer is simple. The US wants to maintain its #1 spot. We're currently the sole world superpower, and in order to maintain that position of power, the country needs to make sure that the rest of the world depends on us, and it needs to make an example of alternative economic structures that would undermine the notion of American capitalist supremacy. But don't just take it from me. Here's former CIA operative and whistleblower Philip Agee talking about the US relationship with Cuba and why we were so adamant in destroying them.
So it's not hopeless, but you see how the United States is going around in these areas of economics and of trade and of commerce and finance to try to make the Cuban people suffer as much as they can. And this is affecting, in a drastic way, very young children and infants, and also the older, in other words, the most vulnerable. And it is an eternal shame on the United States, in my opinion, that we would do such a thing to an entire country, just because we don't like the system, just because they won't come under our protection, basically. It's a kind of a mafia attitude, and it has been that way since Eisenhower.
Well, that's capitalism.
Well, it's also the United States and our tradition of being very nervous when we don't control something. And when a country like Cuba slips out from under our control, after we had ruled it practically as a neo-colony or a protectorate for 59 years or so, then it makes people nervous because they know that if the Cubans are successful in their example of being able to provide, as a poor country, the best medical care in the third world to the whole population, because it's an inclusionary system. It's not like we have here, where you have this huge bulk of the population, marginalized. But there, if everybody can have adequate medical care, if the schooling is adequate for all, and remember, Cuba has more doctors and more teachers per capita than any country in the world, and they have succeeded in these areas, and it's all state supported, which means people don't have to put money out for the medical care or for they of course pay the cost indirectly as a whole society, but they don't have to pay the bill in the hospital and so forth. And so that cannot be allowed to stand. It's a very bad example for the United States. So there's a very large mass of people out there who can look at Cuba and say, well, if they can do it, and on a per capita income of $2,000, $2,500 a year, where ours is $22,500 a year, what's wrong with our system?
President Biden is offering some sharp criticism of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's handling of the war in Gaza. After his State of the Union address last Thursday, the president was caught on a hot mic, voicing what appears to be frustrations with the prime minister. Take a listen.
I told him, baby, show me pieces. I said, baby, you know I should come to you. Sir, just...
Over the weekend, Biden was asked about that comment and his relationship with Netanyahu in an interview with MSNBC's Jonathan Capehart.
What I meant was, it's an expression used in the southern part of my state, meaning a serious meeting. And it was, I've known Bibi for 50 years, and he knew what I meant by it.
So what's the come to Jesus part? Like what tough love are you going to give to the prime minister?
What's happening is he has a right to defend Israel, a right to continue to pursue Hamas, but he must pay more attention to the innocent lives being lost as a consequence of the actions taken. He's hurting, in my view, he's hurting Israel more than helping Israel by making the rest of the world, it's contrary to what Israel stands for. And I think it's a big mistake. So I want to see a ceasefire.
What is your red line with Prime Minister Netanyahu? Do you have a red line? For instance, would invasion of Rafah, which you have urged him not to do, would that be a red line?
It is a red line, but I'm never going to leave Israel. The defense of Israel is still critical. So there's no red line. I'm going to cut off all weapons so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them. They don't have, but there's red lines that if he crosses, and he cannot have 30,000 more Palestinians dead as a consequence of going after. There's other ways to deal with the trauma caused by Hamas.
Meanwhile, Netanyahu is rejecting the president's criticism. He told Politico he's doing what the people of Israel want. The prime minister also vowed to defy Biden's so-called red line with Rafah, saying Israeli troops will still move into the southern Gaza city.
Welcome to a Monday edition of the NiCK and CJ show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin'? My friends and family, it's good to be back with CJ. We was on hiatus last week with NiCK and CJ. You know, we was busy playing banger after banger after banger. Now I got to hit my homie up. It's been a while since I've been with CJ. And I already had like a ton of stuff I want to talk about. Then I saw your notes, and I'm like, damn, this nigga CJ with everything.
Well, I went through your page. I was like, let me go through Nick's page because you told me like pretty much what you're gonna talk about. You tweet about, so I'm like, I need to take a bunch of stuff from here and I put it together, and it's a lot. But go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm you got a great presentation plan, so it's gonna be fun. I'm gonna add receipts with you because I have a lot of stuff you want to talk about, a lot of stuff I want to talk about as well. Also gonna be live at with NiCK and Night tomorrow evening to cover whatever that we don't cover in detail today. So it's all good. I'm gonna be chilling, watching your presentation, and I'm gonna have a lot to say, as I always do. But I have a question for you guys, and this is like the bullshit fake story that they're putting out there. I'm asking you guys in the chat, what does this mean? What does this headline mean? This headline makes no fucking sense, but this is the bullshit they have been spinning with a straight face. Biden breaks with Netanyahu, but sticks with Israel. CJ, we have grown-ass men, people who are considered serious by the professional managerial class. Like, these are the people with degrees. These are the people that Mediaite will rank more reliable than RBN, right? But with a straight face, they pretend that there's a difference between Netanyahu and Israel. What does it mean to break with Netanyahu while you're still supporting his genocidal campaign? You had Netanyahu's opposition that said that they are with Netanyahu 100% during his genocide. And what a lot of liberals and what a lot of Democrats and duopolists, I should say, what they are delusional and what they don't understand is that Netanyahu is doing what he's doing because if he ever supported a ceasefire, you will have these fascist Israelis, You know, the ones who blocking aid and currently starving hundreds of thousands of people? They would have Netanyahu hung out by a tree by the end of the day if Netanyahu ever supported a ceasefire up to this point. Well, a lot of people forget, and I'll pass to you, CJ. I just want to show you guys this absurd headline. Only 2% of Israelis felt like Israel was going too far with their intense bombing campaign of Gaza. Only 2%. Netanyahu is doing what he is doing because he is trying to maintain power, and he's following the will of his fascist colonial settler society. He's the moderate in the Likud party, and Democrats and liberal and progressives, and Bernie Sanders is especially guilty of this. This thing where they're trying to separate this fascist Zionist settler colonial project with the state of Israel and try to tie it and make it a Netanyahu thing. We see through you, and it's obvious what you're trying to do. Netanyahu is following the will of his party, the will of his people, because yet and Netanyahu ever did what, for example, even the Democratic Progressive Caucus. I'm not even going radical left, CJ. I'm talking about liberals, people I would define as right wing. The Democratic Progressive Caucus, and Netanyahu followed their advice. He will be fucking dead within a few weeks. They will get rid of him. He's doing what he's doing for power. But go ahead, CJ. I'll pass to you. That's my intro.
It's amazing, Nick, because we didn't prepare for this shit at all. Together, I mean. And that's the perfect introduction for the very next thing I was going to show, which is that very point. Because what is it? What is a red line, Nick? If I tell, I always use the cheating. It's easy to understand, so I'll use the cheating. If I tell the person cheats on me, and I go, my red line is you cheating on me again, but I'm never gonna leave you. What does that mean? Like, what does that mean when you say that? So that literally means it's not a red line. But this is what the professional managerial class does, Nick. What they do is they make up their own meanings. They change what the definition of things. So they go, a red line means it's not a red line. That's essentially what Joe Biden said. Let me put this video back up. This was a different section in the Morning Joe episode this morning. So Jonathan Capehart actually comes on the show to talk about the interview. So I did want to play a little bit of this. Let's listen to what, when it clips back to the interview, listen to what his red line
is obviously a political sticking point for the president. People voting uncommitted as sort of a protest to what's happening to Palestinians. Let's listen to part of your conversation about that.
You're heading to Michigan, where on the campaign trail, probably in the next few days, where more than 100,000 people voted uncommitted in the primary to protest your handling of the situation in Gaza. Some have said they will never vote for you. One told Charles Blow of the New York Times, and I'm quoting, as bad as Mr. Trump's rhetoric was and him putting a travel ban on 5 Muslim countries, he wasn't overseeing and actively arming a genocide. Those are tough words. What's your response to that widely shared sentiment?
It's not widely shared. You guys make judgments you're not capable of making.
So, Nick, and it's since 5 months, I would say there's been, if you were to count up the people that have been protested worldwide, you got to be saying all the protests, you got to be saying 5 million people. But he's saying, and we just had a protest yesterday. Like every day, Nick, there's tens of thousands of people marching all over the world. But he's saying, everybody doesn't think that. What about the ICJ? Mr. Biden, go ahead.
DJ, people in his own administration protest. They wrote letters and memos, and they intended protests, a lot of them with masks on and covering their identities, because if they didn't, they will be retaliated against. Now, what does that say about our government? That they had to hide their faces, or they'll be retaliated against economically because they're protesting their government's illegal genocidal action. I can't emphasize enough, and everyone should bring it up. Whenever you talk about this genocide and when Joe Biden funding it, he's breaking Leahy's law. Like, we have laws on the books where you cannot fund a genocide. You can't send arms to a genocide. You can't send arms, and you cannot send aid to people who are committing human rights violations. I know what you guys are thinking right now. You guys are laughing at me. NiCK, oh, you sweet summer child. Yes, of course. Because I am emphasizing the fact that we are ruled and governed by criminals. Now, last thought, and then we get back to the video. This shows that we're not even remotely a democracy, because not only do we have people in his own administration that are revolting against his policy, not nearly enough, but a very significant amount. Like, we never seen anything like this before. But you have 80% of Democrats who are against Joe Biden's policy. And I did a hotspot video on these numbers, which is truly fucking crazy to hear. When you hear that 58% of evangelicals support a ceasefire.
Wow. I didn't know
which
that.
is that is the craziest thing I ever heard. You guys know how crazy Israel had to be to lose white evangelicals, and that's what they did. Independents, Democrats, Jewish Americans, the majority of I think the majority of Jewish Americans is around 56%. I tell you guys, big shout out to my friends at Hotspot. They got me sharp. 56% of Jewish Americans support a ceasefire. And then when you change that to Jewish Democrats, do you want to know what the number is? The number is around 70%.
Wow.
When you change it to Jewish Democrats. Do they ever explain this on MSNBC? On CNN? No, they don't. So you have Joe Biden that's going against the will of 70% of Jewish Democrats. Meanwhile, you're like, what are you talking about, bro? What's the difference between him and Trump? Where Trump says crazy, insane lies, which I think he does. And then Biden does the same thing, which is the point that I always make in my politics. But go ahead, CJ. Let's continue. I'm glad you showed it. It's one of the many other things I want to talk about. So I'm enjoying this presentation. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's very curious to me, though, NiCK, that's the point out of the entire question. Like, he's trying to say, hey, you see what's going on? That you're gonna go, oh no, that's not that. It's not a beatdown. It's not a genocide. Like, what for you to go to that point, it's sort of like whatever we call it. You get what I'm saying? Like, whatever you want to call it. If you don't want to use the word genocide, Joe Biden, because you're an imperialist, you don't want to use that. The sheer number of people who are dead, who are civilians, what do you describe as that? Whatever you describe that, Joe Biden, that's what it is. But it's curious to me that he didn't zoom in on the people's emotions. He zoomed in on it's not a genocide. Go ahead, NiCK.
They use that term genocide in Ukraine. They said Russia committed genocide in Ukraine. Bro, Israel killed more children in 2 days than Putin killed in the entirety of his military campaign in Ukraine. The amount of children that Putin was accused of kidnapping is less than the amount of children that was murdered by Israel. You guys see how they're changing the meaning of words, which we are not allowing to happen. If this is not a genocide, then what is?
Exactly.
You don't wait until a genocide is over to speak out against it. The dumbest people in politics, the most malicious people in politics are the people like, oh my God, look, you see these pictures of all these Palestinians? Look, there's no, how can you say they're a genocide? There's still people there. As if you wait until the genocide is over, until everyone's dead to speak out against it. The intent is clear. The statements provided by South Africa to the court made their intentions clear. The intentions of American senators are clear when they say bye-bye Palestine, for example. So you need intent and you need an act. And the act and the intent is clear. So everyone who says it's not a genocide, they themselves are being pro-genocide because they're providing genocide propaganda, genocide denial. These people are Nazis. They are doing the same Holocaust denial, genocide denial that has been considered disgusting and grotesque my entire life. But let's continue. You can continue, CJ.
Yeah, and just to drive home the point, this is a good place to insert this headline. Israeli human rights groups, NiCK, they also accuse the country of failing to abide by the ICJ's Gaza aid ruling. This is 12 prominent organizations signed an open letter criticizing lack of humanitarian access, for example. So to counter sort of what Joe Biden's saying, let me just read a little bit of this that I snipped from the article. 12 of Israel's most prominent human rights organizations have signed an open letter accusing the country of failing to comply with the International Court of Justice, the ICJ, provisional ruling that it should facilitate access of humanitarian aid in Gaza. The court in The Hague made the number of legal requirements of Israel when it issued a provisional ruling in late January in response to South Africa's complaint, accusing the state of committing genocide in its military campaign in Gaza. Now, listen to this part. The requirements included taking all measures to prevent international harm to civilians. That's not happening. Facilitating immediate humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip. They have a blockade, Nick. Preventing and punishing direct and public incitement to genocide, and preserving evidence of any wrongdoing, wrongful acts committed during the country's war against Hamas. So that's all I need to read there. But to drive home the point of what Joe Biden was trying to deflect from, this is a genocide. South Africa brought the case. There's hundreds of thousands of people literally every single week in the streets protesting. It is, but this speaks to messaging, Nick. When they always say messaging, this is what it means. Just to tweak a word here. You're not changing policy. Tweak a word here, tweak a word there to get the listener to believe that you have a change of heart, that you're a good person and you're trying so hard. Does anybody really believe that Joe Biden is trying to do anything as he sends over 100+ secret weapon cells to Israel? It's just simply unbelievable. But we can continue with the video just a little bit. We're not playing a lot. A lot of the video content is just very short video, but let's listen.
That's not what all those people said. What they said was they're very upset, and I don't blame them for being upset. There are families there. There are people who are dying. They want something done about it. And they're saying, Joe, do something. Do something.
DJ, do you have family in Gaza?
I think it's genocide.
I do not. But
Hey,
I'm
Chad,
fighting just as hard.
And be honest, if you do, you probably son of few. I don't have family in Gaza. But you don't need to have family in Gaza. What does it say about this psychopath? What does it say about liberalism? That they assume the only people who are furious about a genocide, a whole ass genocide, people starving if they are related to them. Oh, you must be a Muslim if you're upset. Oh, you must be a Palestinian.
Was it all Muslims? Was it all Muslims at the Oscars last night? Is it all Muslims in the London protests? Is it all Muslims in Ireland? Like, what are they talking about? It's like, this is so easily disproved. I would argue that is, as far as in non-Arab and Muslim countries, in every other country, the vast majority of people who are protesting, who are against it, aren't Arabs and Muslims. It's just regular people with a conscience, Nick. A regular people with a heart who say, hey, man, stop killing babies. Hey, man, that pregnant lady, she needs some anesthesia. Hey, man, stop dropping bombs on hospitals. It is the disconnect. And I'm telling you, to me, it goes, it's still, it's the DNA of white supremacy. It's in the DNA of the United States. It cannot be removed. The framing of other people and these atrocities, it's never going to be accurate because the DNA, our DNA strand is filled with white supremacy DNA. It's the inability to label something real time because a white country benefits from it. But go ahead.
I saw Dave Rubin. I believe it was him. I apologize if I'm wrong. Who cares? One of those right-wing commentators, but I'm pretty sure it was Dave Rubin, whose commentary a few weeks ago on the Gaza genocide, I saw him quote tweet like a protest, and he was like, to me it's crazy that all these people care so much about what's going on in a foreign country. Like, it seems like, and he was implying like they was like funded by someone, like as if like George Soros
like it was
funding anti-protest. He like, man, this gotta be like some sort of fucking fake AstroTurf shit, because no one really cares about foreign policy like this. It doesn't seem natural. He got roasted in the comments by not enough right wingers, I don't think, because the entirety of the right been exposed by this genocide, and Dave Rubin and his grift are one of them, where he was like, why can people care about this? You guys see how Biden and Dave Rubin and the right, how connected they are with, they can't even understand to their core. And you know how I like to humanize people, and I may be wrong in some instances, but I do think like these people who they benefit from blood money, these people who are imperialists and they are offensively imperialist, they know they benefit from genocide. They tell themselves this, and they're able to convince themselves that this is okay, right? But go ahead, CJ. You can continue. But that I don't want to ramble too long on the point. But you can literally see they made this idea like, how can people care about what's going on to other people? Don't you only supposed to care about yourself? Don't you only care about yourself? Like, why don't people care about that stuff? That's why Biden claims that the only people that will care about this are people whose family was harmed. And one more point I almost forgot was remember how 1,000 Black pastors signed a letter calling for a ceasefire, condemned the genocide. 58% of evangelicals and fam. If there's any other stat you need to memorize, it's this fucking one. And I'll be watching this because that destroys their fucking point. That destroys it. And I'm happy to see that because I evolved my narrative. Because remember, guys, what I was telling you guys for weeks, I'm like, guys, what the fuck? How is white America approving of this? But you see, they are starting to turn around. It took them a long ass time. But if you losing 58% of white evangelicals, it's over. It's over, fam. We see how consistent that remains. What happens when propaganda, when they ramp up the propaganda? Because those numbers always can change. We can't do a victory lap yet. But I am very happy to see that number because I have been dragging them. So it's been good to see that number. Anyway, go ahead, CJ. I don't want to ramble.
But to your point right there, ramping up propaganda, and we're seeing it real time. And Nick and I know because we watch corporate media and we watch. It is amazing. They did the State of the Union, then they all pivoted to just lockstep like a march. This is one of those things. The propaganda,
bro. The State of the Union.
Go ahead.
All right, CJ. To this point, the State of the Union shit, bro. I know a lot of people quit like corporate media a long time ago, but it's almost fascinating to me because I did too. For the people who quit, I feel like they don't understand how bad it is now. Like how coordinated it is. And I may be wrong, man. If I'm a sweet summer child, let me know. But corporate media was bad, right? You know, during the era with Jon Stewart used to mock it, we all knew it was bad. But it's worse now. I fucking promise you. It's like straight up unapologetic state media. Every single Democratic Party media like outlet, like CNN, New York Times, every MSNBC show, they sounded exactly the same after this speech. Anyway, I'll let you continue. I don't want to interrupt too long.
No, that's a great point, and they're in lock and step with this too. And all the media tried to play this. Look, the president was caught on hot mic. Understand what this is. This psyop right here is that. Listen, he's really mad at Netanyahu. Now we get to hear him privately. You know how we always say he never says nothing publicly. Always saying private. So the hot mic was supposed to. We caught it. This is how he's talking privately. This is it. How is it a hot mic when it's everybody and mama's around that shit, Nick? How the fuck is that? We're about to see that shit. It's so hilarious.
Isn't that a camera right there?
This a hot mic. Exactly.
Isn't that a camera right there? The fuck y'all talking about?
Let's listen.
Clown shit.
Great speech. I was telling your secretary, I was in Jordan and Israel this weekend, and just, you got to keep pushing what you're doing on the humanitarian stuff and all this stuff.
This is so funny to me.
Now I can hear him, but you got to listen very intently. Now, this is what I want to point out. This thing you said, Nick, how is this a hot mic? He got a whole damn audience. This looks like a sitcom being taped, Nick. This looks like a sitcom. You got a camera, you got a whole audience over here, you got directors in the back. The other thing is, you notice, either security or something like that. Notice how this guy, you see the guy with his hand on Joe Biden's back to the far left. I guess they didn't tell him this was a hot mic. We're taping here. We're taping a sitcom here, sir. You're interrupting the taping because he comes over.
He's not high enough on the ladder to know.
No, he doesn't know that's what's going on. So he comes over to try to hey, we got to go, sir. It's time to go. And then somebody off camera literally stops him and, hey, move out the way. You get what I'm saying? Like, he moves out of the way. He didn't need to move. He could have just stopped and just waited for him to finish. He moved out of the way so he couldn't be in the front of the camera, Nick. This is so ridiculous. Watch this shit. I'm going to rewind it just a little bit. You see where he comes from? This is so fake. And Anthony Blinken standing right there, to me, was the first tip-off, Nick, that this was a setup. Anthony Blinken being there because, go ahead.
I told you guys, politics is Hollywood for ugly people. Like, it's just as scripted as any reality TV show you've seen. As scripted as hell. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, and then so there's a hot mic. Now let's go to Twitter and look at a couple of clips. And I know we've all been commenting on these clips of Joe Biden. And then I have some other people chiming in, like Abby Martin and George Galloway. So that part is next. Then we'll get to the Bernie Sanders just selling out again, to your point earlier. But first, I need to share first. My bad, everybody. There we go. All right, so here's the video. Right. My bad, everybody. All right, right here. Now, we played you the video about the uncommitted. We played you the video about him saying there's no red line. Now, listen to this part about immigration. Remember on the State of the Union, he said illegals? This is Joe Biden playing damage control over that. Now, let's listen.
I noticed the look of surprise on your face when you walked into the chamber and you saw Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene. It was priceless. You feigned shock at seeing her. But during your response to her heckling of you, you used the word illegal when talking about the man who allegedly killed Laken Riley.
An undocumented person. And I shouldn't have used illegal. It's undocumented. And look, when I spoke about the difference between Trump and me, one of the things I talked about on the border was that the way he talks about vermin, the way he talks about these people polluting the blood. I talked about what I'm not going to do, what I won't do. I'm not going to treat any of these people with disrespect. Look,
so do you call elevating your number of deportations? Do you call that being respectful, Joe Biden? Like, do you call funding ICE more? You call that being respectful? Do you call the executive order that you want to sign to basically eliminate asylum? So, Nick, what happened during the State of the Union is that the speech was for the white suburban soccer mom, the Fox viewer, the Nikki Haley supporter. That's what the speech was for. So he wanted to say illegals in that speech. That was purposely put in by a speechwriter. Do you know how many times they went over this speech? Nobody in his camp would go, hey, maybe we should not say illegals. You think that really happened, people? That did not happen. That was on purpose. So guess what? Guess who got to hear him? Guess how many people got to hear him say, call them illegals? Tens of millions. Guess who's hearing him say, oh, I shouldn't have said that? You know how many people watch MSNBC, Nick? Not even 1 million people. Okay? So you got to ask yourself, who is it for and what is he really about. But the reason I wanted to play this, Nick, and then I'll pass to you for your comment, because I don't think I've heard your comment or your opinion on what he's doing with immigration and his executive order and all of that stuff. Because when you're thinking of Palestine, you're losing Black people, you're losing people of color, you're losing progressives, you're losing young people. So you see the polls, Nick, and then they go, oh, let's lose some more people up part of our coalition. Let's do something on immigration to lose their coalition. Nick, I'm starting to believe that they want Donald Trump to get elected. If this doesn't make any other sense. Now, I don't have it well thought out to be like, why would they want Trump? But this is
they need him to say corporate media ratings.
That could be it. That could be
corporate media ratings. Before I chime in, I want you guys to look at the screen and see that what genocide does to you. It turns you to a fucking demon looking motherfucker. Like if I was a child and I saw this guy at night, I would scream. Like that's a monster. That is what a demon like. You see his eyes all black eyes. That's what happens to you when you committed many crimes that this guy has done. When you are evil as Jim Crow Joe. Now, one thing I'm gonna say regarding him calling this person illegal is I think this is actually him. You know what I mean? You may be right that it may be planned, but I think like Joe Biden is not like caught up on the hip left ideology. He's a fucking segregationist, unhinged, capitalist, genocidal monster who pretend to he virtue signal to them. He pretend he understands their language and their culture, but he does not. So if he's speaking to his own class in an open exchange, he will say illegal because that's who he is. Like I'm sure he said the N-word with the hard ER quite a few times. But now one thing I want to say, and this is why I never had Trump derangement syndrome. And this is why I don't understand why people pretend like the border is open, like they do every single election fucking year. It's funny, every election year the border opens up. Isn't that funny? And people pretend like this is a new issue. Like you guys remember how Barack Obama was called the deporter in chief? I know Americans got memories that only last like what, a week. But I remember a man called the deporter in chief, and people would pretend this is a new issue. And people pretend that the Democratic Party support open borders. Repeat after me, my friend. Joe Biden deported more people in 1 year than Donald Trump did in 4. Deported more Haitian people in a few months than Donald Trump did in 4. He saw Barack Obama, the deporter in chief, being like, "Sir, that's amateur shit." So he really believes in this ideology, and it shows in the way he talked. And that is weird. And Caitlin Johnstone had a banger. I'll pass it right to you. She had a banger of a tweet that she said earlier this morning, where she said it's funny to watch Republicans attack Biden because his biggest weakness is the genocide that he's obviously supporting, but they got to find everything else to attack him on because they agree with the genocide that he's supporting. So they got to make up bullshit. Biden and Trump and MAGA, they have the same fucking policies. They believe in the same capitalist agenda, the same anti-China agenda. Trump is already sound like an unhinged Russian maniac, anti-Russian maniac. So they gotta make up shit. They gotta pretend that this 80-year-old fucking man, this segregationist, is some sort of fucking woke, purple-haired social justice warrior who cares about trans people, who they make up all these culture war. This guy, he just in his late age, his tender age, he all of a sudden for open borders. He deported a ton of people. All of a sudden, he opened it right before election season. You guys see, I don't have tolerance for stupid shit. That's the kind of stupid shit that people have been feeding you guys with a serious face. But go ahead, CJ. You can continue.
Yeah, we're not reading this article, just the headline to just kind of drive home the point of how he's coming out and he regrets calling them illegal, and maybe he regrets it just for the backlash. But it's still like, even every time I think of these stories, it's still astonishing to me that Joe Biden is taking these stances that is literally destroying the coalition that he built up, I guess, in 2020. But moving on, he still can't escape the protest, Nick. And not just the protests in the streets, everywhere he goes, he's getting protested on. I just wanted to show a couple of brief angles of this latest protest. He was in Georgia, and then this person protested him. This is Breakthrough News. Breakthrough News, yeah, this is their video.
Your dictator do genocide, Joe! Tens of thousands of Palestinians!
Nick, could you imagine being the people that's booing? You're booing, so somebody stands up and say, hey, slavery's wrong! Stop enslaving those people! Stop raping the women! And they get up, boo! 4 more years! You know how deranged these people have to be, but it's to your point. We are the most propagandized people on the planet. I'm starting to believe ever in existence of the human species, because this is insane that you are here advocating against the people who are saying, hey, stop, can you stop this genocide, please? We really don't want to have to deal with this. But
there was peasants during the medieval era. I always say the United States is the most propagandized country in the world, but I remember there was peasants in the medieval era who was very hostile to people who was anti-monarchy. And whenever the monarchy will feel pain, they will personally feel pain. I still believe they're the most propagandized people in the world. And I remember I was reading the French Revolution. I'm not trying to put back on you, I'm just giving my opinion. I remember the French Revolution, there were these like very hardcore monarchists. There was like rural people, very conservative. They're like, if the king feels pain, I feel pain. And they got violent towards revolutionaries. I think we're getting close to that level, fam. I think those people are like the most, because if you know, and I'm not going to go into history rant, but you guys know the evils the monarchy inflicted on the people, right? Right? I don't have to talk about that, right? So considering how evil the monarchy has been to these people, considering that these motherfuckers willing to die for them, that's some intense ass propaganda. We are getting close though. We are getting so close to the point where people show up to these leaders' events, and I'm not pushing back on your claim, because I think there's legitimacy in there, because we're like that close. Like if you was to tell me to put a gun to my head, who are the most propagandized people? Those medieval peasants who love the kings. Those people showed up to Biden events. They show up to these events like they're showing up to a rock star celebrity event to protect them against anti-genocide protesters. That's almost as bad as it gets, to your point. But let's continue. I don't want to hijack it too much.
Yeah. All right. So I'm just now. This is a slightly different angle, and I wanted you so you can hear what he has been trained to say, what his team has come up with, how to react to the protests so they don't seem repressive. I guess that's their point. But
I say thank you. Wait.
This is how the convention is going to be.
Oh, I can't wait. I think I'm going, CJ.
I'm trying to go too. I'm trying to go too. But let's finish it.
Last time we had a kid on, I think we said we're gonna do it like a live. We're gonna try to do the first ever post duopoly show live.
Man, that'd be
dope.
And I really gotta think. I at least a weekend, a couple of days. At least
we got plenty of time. We got to August. I was like, bro, I got a few months to plan. And after we came up with the idea, like, bro, I got plenty of time. I would make plans. Save some money if I got a few months to save, so I would definitely do that. Because if you can make it, that's great. If you can't, we get it. I know you're pretty busy, but we're definitely trying to make that happen. One more thing I want to say before you continue.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I found it. This is one of the videos. One of the many tweets. I'll put this as briefly.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm glad that a lot of people are starting to notice this. We said this months ago, about a year ago. Ever since these protests really ramped up. But I'll read this tweet because it kind of sums up what I'm thinking right now. The 4 more year chance in response to Biden being heckled for enabling a genocide is fucking dire, disturbing people. And remember the mass genocidal psychosis that I was telling you guys about?
Yeah.
I'm thinking about writing thinking about making a return to Substack. And I think I'm gonna write an article about the mass genocidal psychosis that our society been inflicted with, and that's what that is. your reaction. And that's why, like, bro, technically that doesn't even make sense. Because think about even technically, even if someone accuses your boy of genocide, and then you guys say 4 more years, so that gives the illusion of you guys saying 4 more years of genocide.
Right.
It doesn't even make sense politically. But they still do it because they can't help themselves. I'll put your stuff back up, CJ. They can't even help themselves. It's a horrible look. And they just, in the moment, they don't realize how bad it is. And it would be one thing if you've seen this at one campaign event, 2 campaigns events, but every single Democrat that gets protested, you see the chant breaks out. And remember what we said about over a year ago, CJ, on the NiCK and CJ show? How this is definitely a Democrat strategy to counter protest. Yes. It's something they developed. It's not like a spontaneous 4 more years. There are plants in the audience. And then in the plants in the audience, the DNC plants, they start to chant. And then all you need is that. I'm a wrestling fan. I watch pro wrestling. The chants, all you need a few people, and then the rest started. Four more years. 4 more years. I don't know. Shit, I heard something else start. That's what they do. It's a planned thing. And we got to realize that this is the message of the Democratic Party. 4 more years of genocide. But let's continue, CJ.
Yeah, just finishing now. There's only a few more seconds to see the rest of the protesters.
Look, thank you. Look, I don't resent his passion. There's a lot of Palestinians who are being unfairly victimized. I want to say thank you.
That's a total strategy, but that's I don't want to belabor the point. Let's go to the next one here, and that is I want to play the first part of the interview with Kamala Harris. So Kamala Harris is out in the stump. They got everybody out trying to confuse and lie to people and propagandize people back to Joe Biden. Kamala Harris goes on CBS to talk about a bunch of things. We're not going to get it. We're only going to talk about the Palestinian and the State of the Union stuff. We're not going to get into the rest of the stuff. But let's listen to what is coming out of the Joe Biden camp.
Vice President Kamala Harris is reacting to President Biden's State of the Union address last night and addressing the conflict in the Middle East. She spoke with our Nancy Cordes a short time ago.
And thanks so much for being with us. I want to start out by asking you about the Middle East. You've been urging the Israelis repeatedly to try to reduce civilian casualties. You've been very outspoken about it. But the president put a number on those casualties last night. He said more than 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed.
Bullshit!
Are you losing confidence in Bibi?
Bullshit, man. I'm losing my patience with this shit, my friends. I'm gonna let it continue. But fam, these motherfuckers have said that 30,000 dead it's been 30,000 dead Palestinians for like 8 to 10 weeks. 8 to 10 weeks have been 30,000 dead. We keep seeing new dead bodies every fucking day. I mean, by the hundreds. People dying of starvation. People who was unaccounted for when the original 30,000 number was floated. People who was unaccounted for. They are now discovered. The real number, and people need to start repeating it, 100 to 200,000 dead, at least. At least. And there's a reason why they are doing this. This is what they did in Rwanda, the genocide in Rwanda. This is what they did in Germany as well. This is what they always do during genocide. They have an initial high number, and then they keep that number there and they pause it. That is genocide propaganda. They have done this historically over and over again. So I am not being a nitpicky asshole when I bring this up. There's a reason why they keep bringing up the 30,000 number for weeks, because they want to give the illusion that it stopped or slowed down. It's bullshit and it drives me crazy, but let's continue.
That is, you know what? I that was always something that stuck in my head. I didn't really like examine it or analyze it. I was just like, man, it's been 30,000 for a while.
Yeah,
like,
Ralph Nader's
like,
organization.
Why is that number? Go ahead.
Ralph Nader organization is my source and one of the first people who raised the flag on this. And they was like, bro, if you listen to the people on the ground, when you continue to tally yourself, based on the people dead, based on the people missing, this 30,000 number doesn't even come close to adding up. And his personal estimate is 200,000. So personally, we can say 100 to 200,000 dead, but that's confirmed genocide, because that's completely destroys the narrative that comes from the right. The narrative that comes from the right and all these genocide denialists, all these Nazis, they say, how can you say it's a genocide when it's only 30,000 dead out of 1.2 million? You realize how fast that argument falls apart when you say it's 200,000 dead out of 1.2 million? That's why they do it, fam. That's why we can't. That's why I know I sound nitpicky, but it's very important for us to rebuke the genocidal Nazi propaganda. That's exactly what it is. But let's continue.
Well, 70,000 dead bodies, 170,000 dead bodies. That's not nitpicking. You know what I'm saying? Like 30,000. That's not nitpicking, nigga. That's 3 times, 4 times the amount that they're trying to claim. And you notice that would say from the Hamas ministry, that is always to have that cloud over it. This number, you know, we don't know about this number. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the point. But let's finish out with Kamala. Like I said, this is a short part for Kamala.
Repeatedly to try to reduce civilian casualties. You've been very outspoken about it. But the president put a number on those casualties last night. He said more than 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza have been killed. Are you losing confidence in Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, listen, we've been very open and I think articulate about how we feel about it. First of all, this conflict has to end as soon as possible, and how it does so matters. We need to get the hostages out. We need humanitarian aid to go in. And ultimately, we need a 2-state solution. And we have been working every day, frankly, since October 8th toward that end, in addition to all the work that needs to happen now. We have also been clear. Far too many Palestinian civilians, innocent people, have been killed. Israel has to do better on that issue. It needs to allow more aid to get in. And we need this ceasefire over the course of at least 6 weeks to be able to facilitate support getting in for these innocent civilians who so desperately need it. It is a humanitarian catastrophe, as I have said, and it must be addressed.
Are the Israelis at risk of losing U.S. aid if this continues? The president said last night there's a come to Jesus meeting coming with Bibi Netanyahu.
So you heard her description. This is dire. This is terrible situation with humanitarian aid. So are you guys going to stop doing something? Listen to that. Listen. Are they in jeopardy of losing support? Let's listen to what Kamala says here. Listen to this double talk.
You know, on this topic, I think it's really important to distinguish in how we are, and there are a lot of feelings I understand about all of this, rightly, based on the horror of what has happened. October 7th, 1,200 people slaughtered.
She just pulled an AOC move, if you didn't notice. Her and AOC are very similar in their inability to answer stuff on the fly, and it sounds very word salady. Both of them are very similar.
Ratings around the same too. They have around the same pro rating, so that tracks.
Jesus.
Well, I was listening to what you said. And I'm like, you guys can probably hear me. I'm like laughing because it's unbelievable that anyone take her seriously as a leader. But let's continue listening to this word salad.
Yeah. So I'm gonna rewind it to part of the question again, and then let her give her a full answer. But you'll see she's not at all answering the question, and she avoids the question.
Continues. The president said last night there's a come to Jesus meeting coming with Bibi Netanyahu.
You know, on this topic, I think it's really important to distinguish in how we are, and there are a lot of feelings I understand about all of this, rightly, based on the horror of what has happened. October 7th, 1,200 people slaughtered, many young people who were just attending a concert. Women were horribly abused and raped being a tool of war.
Do you see?
Oh, Jesus Christ, man.
Do you see what she's doing? So when you say, what's the accountability? With the reporter essentially asked her, is Israel going to be held accountable? Is there any accountability? And she goes to, you see all the pain that Israel's going through over here? You see what happened to them on October 7th? Not at all. Trying to change sort of the sympathy, trying to flip it, trying to diminish the sympathy, the solidarity for what's happening to the Palestinian people, because she knows that the policy is not going to change. She understands that weapons are going to still be going to them. She understands that they're not going to press too hard to get humanitarian aid in. They'll just build this bullshit off the shore. She understands that. What's bad about her and AOC, they don't have it down pat how not to look uncomfortable doing that. She looks real uncomfortable explaining this. She doesn't have it down to where she can be like a Barack Obama with a smile saying this stuff. She doesn't have it down that bad. But you were gonna chime in, Nick? I couldn't tell if you said something.
Yeah, I mean, so it's we can let continue. I can. It's overall just train wreck. So I add my thoughts afterwards. So you can continue.
Yeah.
And then you look at what's been happening in terms of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, which again, the horrific images that we are seeing come out of there. And I think it's important for us to distinguish, or at least to not conflate, the Israeli government with the Israeli people. The Israeli people are entitled to security, as are the Palestinians. An equal measure. And our work is always, as the United States of America, going to be to do what we must and what we always have, to stand for the security of Israel and its people, and also to do what we have done behind closed doors and in public around forcing a better path forward in terms of what's happening currently in Gaza.
It seems to me, Nick. Yeah, go ahead.
That was a very long word salad and a very long way to say, nah, we're not doing that. Because believe it or not, I give Kamala credit here. She actually answered the question at the very end. I will listen. That's why I wanted to wait. I want to see if she actually answered the question. And she actually does, believe it or not. It's not to the end, though. She started bringing up all this bullshit. She brings up the rape hoax. You guys know there was an investigation that found Israel's sexual violence on Palestinians and Palestinian prisoners. Meanwhile, they don't bring that up. They bring up the fake October 7th sexual assault hoax that I have thoroughly destroyed as an argument here. I thoroughly destroyed that October 7th hoax. So she go on and talk about that. She talk about Israel. You got to separate the Israeli citizen and the Israeli government, even though Israeli citizens are literally blockading aid. They replace Palestinians when they kick Palestinians out of their home. Who do you guys think replaced them? Settler colonialists. So my question is, how is the settler colonialist innocent when they are forcibly evicting Palestinians from their home? And they're like, well, if I don't do it, someone else is going to steal from them. Imagine you rob a bank and you're like, nigga, if I don't rob a bank, nigga, another criminal's going to rob a bank. I am consistent on this. There is no Israeli citizen, an innocent Israeli. There's Israeli children that are used as human shields in this settler colonial project. But if you are a member of a state where there is mandatory military service, that is an apartheid state, once you join the IDF as a part of the mandatory military service, you are not a civilian no more. If you take part in the settler colonial project, you are not a civilian no more. And then once you're a children, you turn 18-year-old and you sign up to the IDF, you're not a civilian no more. But all right, I'm going through all her arguments. They're not necessarily necessary. You guys know it's bullshit. Now let's get to the point where she answered the question. So she actually does at the very end. She's like, well, Israel was already a strong partner, and we're going to continue to fund them and stand by them. So that's actually when she answered the question. So she lowered you to sleep in the beginning with a bunch of bullshit. And then she's like, yeah, we're actually going to keep funding them, by the way. Right in. That's an insane thing to say. As a country is committed genocide, plausibly found committed genocide by the ICJ, they essentially saying there are no red lines for the government. That was a very long word salad answer, but at the very end, she squeezed that in. Yeah, we will always support, we will always fund Israel like we always have done. What a democracy we have. Anyway, you can continue.
Yeah. And I think we made an earlier point. This is the headline. We're not reading it, but this is Political Europe breaking Israel's Netanyahu has said he will defy Joe Biden's red line and invade Rafah. So Joe Biden's administration say, hey, don't do this. This is going to be a catastrophe. Bunch of organizations have come out and said this is going to be a catastrophic. Then you say, and I'm doing it too. Joe Biden, your administration, you guys can signal that you don't want this to happen. And again, why would Netanyahu not invade Rafah when you on TV said you had a red line that wasn't really a red line? So is he really even crossing the red line? Because there wasn't one.
I want people to know what words mean. Like, once again, you see our society forcing people to accept different definition for words. What do red line mean to you, CJ? It means something that can't be crossed. Yeah. Right. Oh, you can't. Our red line is you invading Rafah, nigga. We're gonna do it anyway. Oh, actually, no. Red line is something else. Your red line was crossed. Do you know what words mean, fam? They don't in this country. But let's continue, CJ. Sorry.
Yeah. No. That's perfect. But then let's just get some reaction from, I guess we can say, pro-Palestinian allies in the professional managerial class, Bernie Sanders, industrial complex. Here's Ryan Grimm. Another Fetterman win. Bro, you guys supported Fetterman. You guys supported Fetterman. Go ahead.
Those people are haunted by that Fetterman support, and they will be for a very long time. And you can see it with and I'm not making they should. So don't get to it. They should have Fetterman derangement syndrome, but they do because the hit of their credibility of supporting this guy, in their back of the head, they would never say this publicly, but in the back of the head, they're like, RBN was fucking right about that. God damn it. So now they forced to make up for it. Like Ryan Grimm and the Vanguard, they have been going hard at Fetterman recently because they are making up for this gross sin of supporting this open Zionist. He wasn't hiding it before. So good for you, I guess, Ryan Grimm, for trying to make up for your pathetic mistake of supporting John Fetterman. And they got this delusion. And I'll pass right to you, CJ. They are so delusional. These sweet summer children. They're like, yeah, John Fetterman's up for election 2028. We're going to get rid of him. We're going to make you pay, John Fetterman. We're going to primary you. Oh, you sweet summer children. You know why John Fetterman's doing what he's doing? You guys see the kind of money that AIPAC is pouring in these elections? Bro, John Fetterman is set for life, friends. And no matter how much you guys do this thing where you're going, I'm going to roll John Fetterman. We're going to take out John Fetterman. No, you got to live with forever the fact that you gave John Fetterman a permanent seat at the Senate because he's going nowhere, my friends. He's going to be backed by the Zionist lobby. Democrats going to support him. In fact, I've seen a lot of people on the right who like, man, John Fetterman's based because he's standing up for Israel.
Yeah, I thought that.
So he's going to have a lot of centrist right-wingers, AIPAC cats that pour in anytime anyone left of center sniffs at him at a primary. So you guys are stuck with John Fetterman for life. So learn your lesson. When you support these Senate imperialist genocidal maniacs, you are giving them permission to have power for the rest of their life. You guys understand? Now you guys see why we are so hard on any motherfucker trying to run for the Senate. These same people like Ryan Grimm and the Vanguards, they hated our guts because they viewed us as, oh, look at RBN, they being wreckers again. RBN wreckers of the progressive movement. You guys want Dr. Oz to win? I will never forget this. You guys know I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm going to never let these people live it down because we are stuck with John Fetterman because of the Ryan Grimms. And no matter how many tweets you make about him, no matter how many segments you do about Ryan Grimm, nothing will change the fact that you gave him power forever. Sorry for that mini rant, CJ, but it had to be said. I'll pass it to you.
No, that's perfect. And I want to actually add to that because they were pushing him because the progressives or the NATO left, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex, they're okay with what I'm going to label hibernated Zionists. Meaning there's no active sort of genocide going on, so I'm okay. So when there's no genocide going on, so be pre-October 7th, pre-October 8th, because that's when the genocide started. Pre-October 8th, NiCK, it's the NATO left's belief that yes, he's progressive. He's a Zionist, and just like Marianne Wyndham, when we would prefer them not be that, but it's hibernated. That bad take is on hibernation right now. There's no real use for it right now for us to be against him on that point. So so hibernated Zionists are okay, according to the NATO left, aka Bernie Sanders industrial complex. I got that right when I was listening to you. I was like, yeah, that is such a good point. And then Nina Turner also chimes in and she says, no more aid to Netanyahu. To me, I would say dismantle the genocidal state of Israel.
I don't want to be too
Why
mean here.
Why isn't the United States going into Gaza to fight for Gaza against Israel? I would like to see that, but go ahead, Nick.
It's a good tweet, I guess. But you gotta know I'm nitpicky. You guys see how progressive they use Netanyahu for Israel? You good. But you guys see how they use Netanyahu as a filler for Israel? I guess it's a good tweet because fuck Netanyahu, but why not just say Israel? No more aid to Israel. Why not take the position that George Galloway has, where he say he does not recognize Israel? I don't recognize Israel. Do you recognize Israel? Do you guys? I don't. No, I don't recognize Israel. And if you recognize Israel before, I think the position now is that Israel law should lose your recognition. I think this is an opportunity. I don't think Palestinians should forgive them. I think we should never say that. I think this is an opportunity for people who got this issue wrong to get it right now. You know what I mean? You guys know I'm a softie who I like to see redemption stories. If you got this issue wrong before, now is the time. Oh, I used to think that the two-state solution was viable. I used to think that Israel had the right to exist. Now I don't think they do. After that genocide, I support South Africa. I think Israel need to be dissolved. I think there to be one-state solution. I don't forgive people that say that, who was wrong on this issue, who take that stance, because I think that should be. I think that's not even a radical stance. I think that's what any human should take away after a country committed genocide. After the genocide, you don't no longer deserve to exist. And we about to take steps as the international community to make sure you don't exist. That's where I stand anyway. But CJ, I see you got a video queued up, so I'll pass to you. We can get to it.
Yeah, we're just moving along, same story, just a bunch of different receipts here. Now, it's basically centered around a lot of what we've been talking about. Palestine is, the reaction from some of the stuff in State of Union. And then that Jonathan Capehart interview. But here is Bernie Sanders. I'm going to play a short clip of the interview, and then we can play a little bit more of the longer clip. But here's Bernie Sanders pretty much selling out climate change in order to vote for Joe Biden. Now, understand, the biggest contributor to the climate crisis is the military. So you can't be fine with sending money to Ukraine and just funding the military industrial complex and then be like, oh, I'm for, let's fix this climate change. Huh? Like that doesn't go. But let's listen to Bernie Sanders. We'll comment after on the other side. It's about 90 seconds.
Here, can you in good conscience ask your supporters to vote for Mr. Biden?
Well, look, the contrast that I think President Biden made it very clear in the State of the Union address. If you believe that climate change is real, you got to vote for President Biden. If you believe that women have a right to control their own bodies, you got to vote for President Biden.
What a cut.
If you think that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, you don't give trillions of dollars in tax breaks to the 1%, you've got to vote for Biden. If you want to lower the cost of prescription drugs, you got to vote for Biden. If you believe in democracy and involving people in the process rather than keeping people from voting, you have to vote for Biden.
So you're saying you need to put.
Now, the question is, in good conscience, do you understand that? That just meaning like your conscience is going to be clear if you tell your supporters to vote for him. And he's saying yes. He's saying, and he's pointing out, because he's naming things that might appeal to people who will be his supporters, like climate change. You notice what he says: if you believe climate change is a thing, not if you believe Joe Biden is actively doing something to help climate. Like if you just think it exists.
That's a great point.
That's the point he's making. He's not going as far as saying Joe Biden's going to do anything. He just because I've seen along other interviews where his point is that Donald Trump doesn't even claim climate change is a thing. At least
Now,
Joe Biden. Think of that bar. Think of that bar. Go ahead, Nick.
No. Let's think about that for a second. Doesn't that make Joe Biden worse? This has been my position. Like the right-wing position is that, hey man, this climate shit, I don't believe it. Fuck it. Now, there are a lot of people that say they don't believe it. They're just doing the interests of big oil and corporate interests. But let's say they really believe that. Isn't that more noble that they don't believe it, so they're governing in a way that's according to their belief? Now, let's say you do believe in this new climate code that does a lot of harm to the actual cause of environmentalism. You actually believe that the world is going to end in a few years because of climate change. And then you still continue your policies that is going to doom the world. So you're like, yeah, I believe that the world is doomed because of our policies. And then the young people are like, hey, can you change those policies? No, fuck it. Fuck the planet. That's worse than the Republicans, right? You know what I mean? And I talked about this many times before we continue the video. I think conserving the environment is important. I think being an environmentalist is important. In a spiritual, holy way, we are given this planet, and it's our responsibility to take care of it. And we should leave the planet in a better state for our children. I strongly believe that as a core value. But with that said, nothing has done more harm to the environmental agenda than the bullshit, neocon, capitalist climate agenda, which I oppose, because they oppose green imperialism on third world countries. They push the cost of fighting for the environment on the working class with the Democrat, capitalist, liberal, green agenda. There is no environmentalism without class warfare. Environmentalism without class warfare is just glorified gardening. Fam, you're not doing anything. I care about environment. I do. And for all the people on the right who say, who cares the fuck about the environment? Fuck them. Let's care. I don't agree with those people. I do think we should care for the environment, but the climate agenda is a capitalist scam that is meant to avoid class warfare, because you guys see that this fucking sellout, this imperialist Bernie Sanders, is using this climate agenda to prop up genocide Joe Biden. You know, the person who is drilling more than Donald Trump. It's a fact that the right is having a very hard time acknowledging, but Biden is increased oil production in the United States. He is drilling more than Donald Trump. But you gotta see how he uses the fake climate code to prop up this maniac. So I think this is a very important distinction to make, because I care about the environment. I actually find the people who don't care about the environment repugnant. You know what I mean? But the climate agenda and the climate scam has done an amazing amount of damage to our cause. If you're not all for class warfare, if you're not talking about dismantling the military-industrial complex, you're unserious about this issue. Sorry for that rant once again. CJ, let's continue.
No, that was perfect, because I did see a comment. I'm trying to find it, but I can comment on it without it. Is that because we hear people say climate change is a hoax, or climate change is that. What they really mean is what you just described.
Yeah,
the climate change agenda is what the problem is. That's the scam. That's the capitalist scam. That's the whip scam. That's what that is. It doesn't mean that we're not contributing to damaging the earth. That's not the same thing. And Vivek kind of made a distinction of this, at least in one debate. I don't know how he really feels, but I remember Vivek making climate change agenda. He kept saying it, and he didn't say climate change. But go ahead.
Now, to that point, just real quick, and we continue. A few times there have been right wingers that reach out to me like, "Don't you know that climate change is a scam made by Al Gore to make money?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fuck Al Gore, bro. What the fuck you talking about? You think I'm pro Al Gore? Fuck Al Gore and fuck his agenda." And then when I say that, they're like, "Yeah, for sure." And then, guys, when I talk to a lot of these conservatives, they're for clean water. They are for environmentalism. This is what I'm talking about when I mean the damage. Conservatives and Republicans came from a pro-environment ideology. It was Richard Nixon who created EPA. Conservative meaning conserve the environment. It's supposed to be pro-environment. And I'll bring this up to conservatives like, bro, I believe the climate agenda is a capitalist scam too. But why wouldn't you care about taking care of the earth? And everyone relates to that. Even the quote-unquote climate change denialists, you know what I mean? Because I had these conversations while I was canvassing. Remember, I was canvassing in South Carolina. I have a lot of these real-world experience talking to these conservatives. And you lose the conservatives on the climate change shit. But when you talk about clean water, when you talk about the fact that military polluting environments, whenever I bring that up, even to the most conservative people, once again, this is anecdotal. Keep that in mind. It's anecdotal. That's what reaches them. You know what I mean? But anyway, CJ, let's continue.
No, that's a great point. Let's get back to the video. It's very short. We're going to just have her re-ask the question and then listen to his answer. 90 seconds here.
Can you, in good conscience, ask your supporters to vote for Mr. Biden?
Well, look, the contrast that I think President Biden made it very clear in the State of the Union address. If you believe that climate change is real, you got to vote for President Biden. If you believe that women have a right to control.
If you believe climate change, that was the first point. Now it's if you believe women have a right to control their bodies. So you're saying, Bernie, we elect Joe Biden and then we get the right to Roe v. Wade is overturned? Like it's absurd because he's just saying if you Joe Biden just believes this stuff, not that he's gonna materially do anything about any of this stuff.
Their own bodies. You got to vote for President Biden. If you think that at a time of massive income and wealth inequality, you don't give trillions of dollars in tax breaks to the 1%, you've got to vote for.
What about during the same income inequality? What if you, instead of giving massive tax breaks to the rich, what if you send $1 trillion to the military industrial complex, Bernie? Wouldn't that be the same thing, Bernie? Wouldn't that be the same thing?
I said this on Saturday. Do progressives know that the arms industry are corporations? You gotta know that. So the arms industry had made record profits under Joe Biden. Sir, what are you talking about? Let's continue. I'm gonna say a lot of my comments to the end of the video because there's a lot to unpack here. This is a very condensed amount of bullshit in this 90 seconds.
Yes. For Biden. If you want to lower the cost of prescription drugs, you got to vote for
another
Biden.
Lie.
If you believe in democracy and involving people in the process rather than keeping people from voting, you have
and keeping people from voting. You shut down the primaries.
to vote for Biden.
So you're saying progressives need to put this aside?
I am saying we've got to not put it aside. The fight continues to change Biden's policy in Gaza. But the contrast between Biden and Trump is day and night. The election of Trump would be a disaster for this country and, in my view, the world. We've got to come together, re-elect Biden, but at the same time, we have to demand that we have a progressive agenda where we have an economy that works for all, not just the few.
So you're standing by your endorsement of Mr. Biden's election despite the current policy?
No, I am not supporting Mr. Trump.
This guy is such a fucking disappointment. But go ahead, Nick. You're gonna for your analysis, sir.
There's so much bullshit to unpack there. Let's start with. I'm still torn about the environment stuff. Obviously, he talked about how if you care about democracy, support Biden. For one, what does that even mean? Like, what does that even mean? That's a filler word that means nothing. But I want to bring this up too because this is the war that Bernie Sanders supports. I'm gonna share my screen just quickly here, CJ. This is the war that Bernie supports. This is the war that Biden supports. As he pretended tackling corporations, you know, the corporations that stand to benefit from the Ukraine war, the arms industry that made record profit. BlackRock that's like, boy, I'm about to make a ton of money rebuilding this motherfucker. So you guys think you're fighting corporate greed? The United States pledged billions to fight climate change. Then came the Ukraine war. Not only that, you know your boy was caught bombing a whole ass pipeline, Bernie? You know the pipeline that accounts for the largest methane leak in human history? That one? Fam, Joe Biden is the largest eco-terrorist in human history. Since Richard Nixon burnt down the forest in Vietnam, have we ever seen an act of environmental terrorism like this? And now I've seen this. I was looking for another receipt. I saw this. I actually got to read through this one. This is a new receipt I just found looking for that one. Look at this. So you had all these experts after the Nord Stream pipeline bombing happened. That was like, oh my God, dude, this is the worst shit ever. This is the worst leak that we ever seen. This is catastrophic. So then it came out that, hey, yo, you know all the shit we said about how bad the Nord Stream pipeline leak was? Yeah, it's actually worse than that. Look at this. Nord Stream gas explosions may have caused greater ecological damage than expected. What? You know how many doomsday headlines I read that I can pull up? Look, this one, if I remember right, is September 2022. Where everyone was like, yeah, this shit's bad. And now the analysis is like, yo, well, this shit's way worse than we thought it was. But good luck asking Bernie a question about the Nord Stream pipeline. Good luck asking AOC, TYT, any of the NATO left about the Nord Stream pipeline, as they say you should vote for Joe Biden for the climate. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to focus on that one because there's so much individual bullshit that Bernie said. Every reason he told you to vote for Joe Biden is the exact opposite. But this lie is the worst among them all. He told you to vote for the Nord Stream pipeline bomber for the environment. War is peace. Ignorance is strength. Freedom is slavery. They're the shit they tell us. So I told you, CJ, I'm going to have a lot to add to some of your stories. So that's my add-on to that. You can continue.
Absolutely. And I got, yeah, so let's bring this headline up. This is, I'll put it, just continuing with the Bernie Sanders interview, you saw what he rambled off these list of reasons why you should be voting for Joe Biden. Let me just go a little bit deeper in the conversation, not just that clip. He says more, and I'll read a couple of things here. Bernie Sanders reaffirmed support for Joe Biden after Biden declares no red lines, quote in quotes, in Israeli assault on Gaza. This is from World Socialist website. I'll read a little bit from it. Sanders' boosting of Biden should dispel any lingering doubt workers and youth may have about the political role the senator from Vermont occupies in U.S. politics. Far from the vanguard of a political, I'm laughing at that now when I'm thinking, vanguard of a political revolution, Bernie Sanders?
There's still people who believe this. There's still children who believe this.
Crazy. It's freaking crazy. But I'll continue. Far from the vanguard of the political revolution, Sanders' unwavering support for Biden's election campaign, even as Israel continues to starve and massacre Palestinians after over 155 days of ethnic cleansing, it exposes Bernie as a booster of the Democratic Party and apologist for genocide. In his interview with Margaret Brennan, the one where we just watched, Sanders expressed sorrow for the thousands killed by U.S. supplied bombs and bullets, and increasingly by starvation due to Israeli blockade. Go ahead.
I love that part. Oopsies. Read that part again. He's upset about the amount of. That's so. That's
he expressed sorrow.
There it is. That's how you said it.
Sorrow.
He expressed sorrow. Oopsies. I'm very sad. I feel very sad about the children that we helped killed. That's so weird. But sorry, continue.
That's literally the threshold that you have to clear as far as doing something for people who are being repressed and oppressed in this white supremacy DNA country. That's literally threshold. You feel bad for him? Okay. You're okay now. Go ahead back to your regular life. You get what I'm saying? That's essentially what it is. But I continue. This is a quote, Bernie saying 30,000 people, 2/3 of which women and children, had been killed. But as he does in every public appearance, Sanders refused to characterize the Israeli government action as a genocide or genocidal. Sanders falsely presented the war as solely the product of the right-wing extremist government under Benjamin Netanyahu. In doing so, Sanders completely whitewashes 75 years of U.S. support for Israel and the direct involvement of the Biden administration in arming, financing, and politically supporting Netanyahu's actions. By presenting the current government in Israel as somehow an aberration, and that's what they're all doing, Nick. The establishment started saying this, like they were saying this on Morning Joe a while. Netanyahu's the problem. Netanyahu. It finally has reached the NATO left, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex. Now they're all saying the same thing. But you want to read that from Zoya? That's a good comment right there.
U.S. oil production has reached its largest volume in recorded history, more than 13.2 barrels a day in October. Crazy. Official figures show, outpacing its highest point under Donald Trump's presidency. Now do you guys see why the right sounds so fucking stupid and why they got pushed culture wars? It's the same thing with the open border. They put their boy to shame. Joe Biden deported more people than Donald Trump, but they tell you there's an open border. They tell you that Joe Biden is like they often tell you that Joe Biden is not doing enough with energy production. They pretend that he folded to the Bernie Sanders left and he supported the Green New Deal. This is the kind of shit you hear from like Janine Pirro and the people I find too stupid to cover, like Laura Ingram. Like, and I know that you don't either. Like I watch your show. So I know you don't either. There's certain people that are too dumb to cover. You know what I mean? Those people are too dumb to cover, and those are the people that would pretend that there's an open border. They're the people who pretend that Joe Biden is actually believes in the Green New Deal. He's not drilling. So, you know, when I do propaganda report, I report on like what I view as state narratives, especially stuff like foreign policy. To me, they're not even of any value in covering like the Five, Laura Ingram, and those people who repeat that. Like they pretend that Biden at the age of 80, like what is he, like 90,000 years old? They pretend that he's like a radical fucking commie. Like it's so unserious, not even worth my time breaking down a lot of the time. You know what I mean? But great comment as always. That's what I was saying earlier. But let's continue, CJ.
Yeah, Jesse Waters, just to piggyback up. Jesse Waters is another one. Every now and then I'll see something, but it's just a certain group of people. It's like you're too far gone.
No, I can't even cover you, like, bro. I can't there's nothing I can even add to your stupidity, bro. There's a waste of time. You know what I mean? But anyway, go ahead, CJ. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I'll continue with a little bit more of this article, and this is an important point because this is what they're all doing. They're trying to pretend like Netanyahu is the reason, and this new government is the reason that is so terrible when they've been terrible for years. By presenting the current government in Israel as somehow an aberration from the decades joint Israel-U.S. policy, Sanders postures as an opponent of the Israeli military and declared his opposition to providing another $10.1 billion to Netanyahu, though he indicated he would support funding Israel if Israel let in more aid trucks.
What?
Sanders? Yes, he did say that. I'm going to play it for you in a second.
That's so fucking weak. Anyway, continue. Sorry, continue. That was a visceral reaction. Go ahead.
Sanders' opposition to providing additional military funding to Israel is not across the board. As he wrote in his December 2023 press release, quote, Israel has an absolute right to defend itself. Therefore, I believe it is appropriate to support defensive systems that will protect, you mean like the Iron Dome, that will protect Israeli civilians against incoming missiles and rockets.
I have to add this, CJ, before we continue. That's the bullshit that they say all the time, and the progressive except Palestine people. The people, I'm glad that people don't pull up with their bullshit no more. I'm so glad to see how much even like the professional managerial class left has come where they don't fall for this bullshit no more. When the squad voted for the Iron Dome, when Jamal Bowman voted for the Iron Dome, they're like, oh, it's defensive. Let me put it like this. This is the best analogy I can put to explain why the Iron Dome is not defensive.
I love this analogy. Let everybody listen up. But I heard this many times. This is a great analogy. Go ahead.
Imagine you have a serial killer at a mall and he was stabbing a ton of people with a sword and a shield. He was killing people with the sword, yes, but the shield prevented people from stopping him on the rampage. That's how like old school warriors use a shield, or at least warriors in video games. I'm a big video. So you use a shield to bash people, a shield to keep, so you can keep slaughtering people. Let's say you got a high kill count doing this because the shield protect you. Hell, there's even a security guard that's trying to open fire, but you drop Spartan mode and you defend yourself with a shield. Will you categorize this shield that was used in this slaughter as a defensive weapon? It is absolutely not. That's the Iron Dome. It's used to protect Israel as they commit massive, gross human rights offensive against the Palestinian people, as they wage a one-side war against the Palestinian people. And I say the Palestinian people, not Hamas, because they're at war with the Palestinian people.
They are.
Whenever the Palestinians try to respond, like any side in the conflict would, that's in the middle of a conflict, the Iron Dome is there to protect them. The same way that shield is there to protect this theoretical psychopath that is committing a massacre, right? But anyway, let's continue. I think hopefully that makes my point. The idea that Iron Dome is defensive is bullshit, but that's what the progressive accept Palestine people always been saying. That has been the PIP talking point for years and years and years. Come on, man. You guys against funding the Iron Dome? Oh, you just supporting terrorists. Now, this is why the left loses me. You guys don't support a little Iron Doming? I've been following this conflict for years. I've been hearing this shit for years. Continue, CJ.
Sanders then reaffirmed his backing for the military campaign against Hamas after a temporary ceasefire. Quote, Hamas is dedicated to destroying Israel, Sanders said, adding, quote, I think at the end of the day, Hamas cannot be continuing to run Gaza, end quote. Though he added the caveat that Netanyahu government would also have to go. Turning to Biden's recent interview, Brennan played a clip in which Capehart asked Biden if it would be a red line if Israel invaded Rafah after Biden had urged him not to. Biden replied, and we saw the video where he said it's a red line, but it's not really, a red line. But let's listen to what Bernie Sanders says. He says the defense of Israel is still critical, so there is no, this is what Biden says. There is no red lines. He added that he would not cut off all weapons, so they don't have the Iron Dome to protect them. Asked by Brennan to comment on Biden's red line statement, this is Sanders' reply. Sanders replied that an invasion in Rafah would be an unmitigated disaster, but that the bottom line, though, Netanyahu has got to be told no more money for his war machine unless there is humanity. Unless it is not just no more money. It's no more money unless this happens, unless there is an humanitarian aid coming in to feed the people. Go ahead.
But is a three-letter word, but that is the biggest word in that paragraph.
Yes. Yes.
Somehow that is the biggest word in that entire paragraph. But let's continue, though. You can continue, CJ.
Yeah, and this is the last part. In other words, as long as there is some humanitarian aid, quote unquote, coming in, Netanyahu and his U.S.-funded war machine can continue their campaign. And that's the same way I read what Bernie Sanders said in the interview. And I changed my mind. We don't need to go through the interview since we went through the article that covered it. We don't need to finish the full interview just to save time. Yeah. Now let's listen to Pramila Jayapal, what she says, kind of chiming in on this. This is about 90 seconds here.
Sure, there certainly needs to be an effort to reach out to progressives, but then you also see the campaign that is monitoring the moderate independent base as well, right? There's still this underlying idea that you need the moderates, that you need Nikki Haley's voters to win this election. What leverage do progressives have in this moment?
So you understand the framing. She's saying they need to go after basically suburban white moms, the Nikki Haley supporters. So in that framing, Pramila, how does the progressive have leverage? Meaning they're just going to go after, since you guys don't want to fall in line, we'll just go after and we'll just move right and go after these other people. But go ahead, Nick, you're going to chime in.
This shows how there's actually kind of two ways you can take this, that there's no meritocracy in DC and the Democratic Party, or they don't care about winning. I think both of those are valid takes away from this. Because you guys understand, this is the ideology that lost Obama over 1,000 seats. You guys understand, this is the ideology that led to the right-wing Supreme Court. You know, the Supreme Court that they're currently bitching about? They can blame everyone under the sun. They can blame Jill Stein. They can blame me. They can blame RBN. They can blame Jimmy Dore. But the reason why we have a Supreme Court, that's the legacy of Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Barack Obama. Mostly Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, because what is their job? Their only job as leader is to elect more Democrats. They failed. They lost 1,000 seats with this strategy that Chuck Schumer laid out, that they're going to abandon working people of color so they can win back suburban moms, suburban white women that abandoned the party. You want to know how well that worked out? Donald Trump, of all people, won the white woman vote not once, but twice. In fact, he did better with white women in 2020 than he did the first time. So not only is this a completely disgusting strategy on face value, the fact that you're going to abandon workers for the suburbs, it didn't even work. Like, if you was to take morality out of it and you just look at it objectively, the strategy that you're advocating for and what you hear on Morning Joe is a failing strategy. Now think about it. 50% of people don't vote. So why would you go after these mythical voters that you created in your mind? Nikki Haley voters are something you guys created. Numbers-wise, wouldn't it make more sense to go after the 50% of voters who don't vote, the working class people who are disaffected? No, because of class antagonisms. Class antagonisms, class differences cannot be reconciled through electoral politics. That's why they are even willing to engage in a losing strategy, because class antagonisms run that strong in politics. Sorry for the lecture, but let's continue. Go ahead, CJ.
No, those are some great points. Let's just finish out this video with Pramila, and then we have George Galloway and Abby Martin chiming in also.
Yeah.
We have a lot of leverage. The only reason President Biden got elected in 2020.
I'm sorry. So I should just to remind, she's answering, do progressives have leverage? That's what she's talking about. So let's listen.
We have a lot of leverage. The only reason President Biden got elected in 2020 was because he came out and was a champion for a very fragile coalition coming together. He had a lot of respect for progressives. We had, if you remember,
she said he had a lot of respect for progressives, and the point that the thing that she proves, or the thing that she shows, is that proves he had respect. Remember those? Let me let her say it, and then I will comment.
For progressives, we had, if you remember, the Biden-Sanders Unity Task Force.
The Biden-Sanders Unity Task Force. You remember that, Nick? Where they refused to even vote Medicare for all on the damn platform, the platform that has no teeth to do anything. They refused that. What came out of that task force? But she is trying. I can't stress enough. They're so disgusting. Pramila Jayapal, how did you describe her? She's the person she's hired to lose.
Professional loser. They're here for a reason. They're here to be professional losers. They're not the best among us. These what the idiots would say, like the Ryan Grims, the David Packman. They're like, come on, man, they're not perfect, but they're the best among us. No, they're here to serve a role. Pramila Jayapal, her role is to write a Medicare for All bill and to make sure that motherfucker never passes. Their job is to be the losers, to be like, oh man, we tried, but we couldn't accomplish it. Oops. Sorry, man. If only we fight harder next time. Then they propose another stupid strategy that doesn't work. Oh man, unfortunately, we couldn't get accomplished. If only we tried this time. You guys see how they stall for the establishment? That's their job. They stall for the establishment. But anyway, let's continue. I'm gonna have a lot to say to what the bullshit that she says here. Not only did they not get Medicare for All on the Progressive Task Force, this is what I'm about to say. Biden didn't even do the stuff that was on the task force, like the public option, the $15 minimum wage.
Nope.
Like the task, I still remember in my debate with that deeply unserious clown Vosh, that was one of the talking points he stuck on me, because he like, do you know what the progressive task force? I was like, no, I don't know about that shit. And then they use that as the guy say, oh look, Nick, you say we shouldn't vote for Biden. You don't know what the task force is? And I said, I'm like, bro, I don't know what the fucking task force is, because it doesn't matter what they fucking put on the task force. They're not gonna do it. And that's why they're like, see, NiCK is crazy. He don't even know what the task force is. He said you don't vote for Biden. That was their big gotcha. And I told them to their face that it doesn't matter what was on that task force. They wasn't going to do it. And that's exactly what happened, right? So the fact that she even brought up the task force years later shows how nefarious she is. Like, I would think that she wouldn't even bring it up. The fact that she brings it up shows how she's trying to mislead people about her failures, and the fact that the Democratic Party haven't even come close to matching the ask of the progressive community. But let's continue, CJ.
Yeah, so let's finish out. It's about another minute left for this video. She just goes on with just more nonsense.
We had, if you remember, the Biden-Sanders Unity Task Forces. We had a very progressive agenda. He had a very progressive agenda, and he does too in terms of an economic agenda today. That is the same progressive agenda that we're running on, and we accomplished so much. But I would just say to everybody, I think the biggest base of swing voters is not just the independent suburban woman. And by the way, I don't know that we're going to get many of the Haley voters, but we will get, I think, some independent suburban women. They are very important. But the biggest base of swing voters is progressive voters, young voters, Black and brown voters, immigrant voters who we desperately need to turn out. And I think that is the coalition we need to rebuild. I think we can do it, but the president's got to be just as attentive to progressive voters as he was in 2020. And then, listen, Paula, I think we have a lot of work left to do. Universal child care.
It is so terrible how she's trying to rewrite history, that Joe Biden was attentive in that is not how even that task force. Remember, they didn't have one progressive speak at the freaking conference, and that was a big deal. They just had AOC kind of introduce somebody, and then that was it. Like, the retelling of history, and this is just simply not what happened. This is just this is simply not what happened. And it's just, it's disgusting that Pramila, AOC, and Bernie Sanders, they do this all the time. At the moment, it's pretty terrible. And then when it's time for re-election, oh, Joe Biden has been great the whole time. And it's just, it's disingenuous, it's dishonest, it's all of the above, NiCK. But let's move to what Abby, because the reason I want to include this part here, or not particularly here, but this short clip is under 3 minutes. Abby Martin goes on the George Galloway show, and we all know George Galloway was just recently George Galloway was just recently elected, right? Hang on one second. George Galloway was recently elected, so he had Abby Martin come on, but they discussed this question I haven't seen in a while, or I haven't seen ever, NiCK. I don't know if you have, and that is, do U.S. politicians have conscience? Are they watching what we're watching? That's the question that George poses to Abby. Let's listen.
It has to be a matter of deep psychology for so many politicians in your country and in mine to be as unmoved by what you and I are watching as we are moved by it. What lies beneath it? What's the reason for our politicians being completely unmoved at massacres of infants, at the maiming, amputations, and, you know, heads burst open of little babies being taken to now non-existent hospitals? How is it possible not to be moved by that?
Psychopath.
5 months of seeing children shredded apart. I do not know the answer to that, George, other than political cowardice and the fact that these politicians only care about one thing and one thing only, their political careers. You do not get into politics in either of our countries if you are a moral person, other than, of course, people like you. I mean, it is unbelievable and disgusting to see the amount of politicians completely beholden to a genocidal apartheid state, committing genocide. I mean, killing scores of civilians, women, infants, like you said. I mean, this is a genocidal policy. You are depriving infants of formula and nursing mothers of water. Look, Joe Biden said it himself, and I think he elucidated it perfectly decades ago on the House floor when he said, if Israel didn't exist, we would need to create her to serve our interests. And when you look at Israel, I mean, this tiny state, I mean, it might as well be the 51st state. It's an appendage of the US empire. It's a settler colonial outpost, and it's used as a battering ram for US imperialism and its junior collaborators, which is the United Kingdom. So it's sick that, I mean, you see Code Pink, you see 5 months of people confronting politicians in the halls of Congress, marching out in the streets, doing civil disobedience actions everywhere, right? And these politicians remain unmoved. How is that possible? How are you a human being? How is it possible that John Kirby's sitting up there crying crocodile tears for children in Ukraine and is completely stoic?
I'm gonna let it finish out.
Infant after infant are shredded to bits. I can't claim to know, George. I'm sitting here every day wrapping my mind around the medieval barbarism that we're seeing unfold, that really just surpass the human limitations of evil every single day.
And to the point that she makes, this is love the description, but it goes back to what I said, Nick. What they're talking about is like, man, how is this possible that you're not seeing this, how are you not feeling this? Like, you know how many months, Nick? How many months of protest that they said if we protest, they'll change stuff. Months, worldwide, millions of people have, and they don't care. And to that point, think about all the Western countries. They all have a strand in their DNA that's white supremacy. That's what they're speaking to. When you say, how can they not have any sympathy? Like, how do you not have a heart? That is the DNA. It is intertwined in Western culture, that it's just, it is an inability to see non-whites as anything less than. They will never be seen as equal, ever, in my opinion. But here is Tom Perez. So when you say, do they have a conscience?
Shout out to my friend Kay. Like, this is my good friend Kay who actually did this. I'm so proud of you. Big shout out to my friend Kay, who found Tom Perez at a grocery store. I've been friends with Kay for a while, so big shout out to her, because it takes a lot of courage to call out these psychopaths. Like, you hear how Abby describes these people, how George talks about these people. These people are gangsters. These people are truly horrific people. So what you see here by Kay, and I'm calling her Kay because I don't even want to say her name, bro, because the retaliation that she probably will face.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that. Yeah.
So I'm very proud of the action that she did. I know she watches RBN every once in a while. So big proud of you. And RBN, very proud of what you did here, okay? So let's go to the video. I love this. So let's go to it.
Yes. So supermarket, Tom Perez. Let's watch.
Hey, Tom, why do you support genocide? What about the over 30,000 dead babies in Palestine? Aren't you a family man? Don't you care about kids, innocent kids dying? You have no shame? Shame on you. Why aren't you calling for a ceasefire? Do Palestinian lives not matter? Why is that okay with you? Why aren't you demanding that Joe Biden call for a ceasefire? We want peace in the Middle East. We don't want to see dead babies. Shame on you. You have blood on your hands. How could you not call for a ceasefire? Do Palestinian lives matter? Do they matter?
They absolutely matter, and that's why the president called for a ceasefire in his State of the Union.
The president called for a ceasefire in the State of the Union. You damn liar.
Lying to her face. Motherfucker.
Let me just let it finish now.
Pause. We need a lasting ceasefire. Yes, I did. We need a lasting ceasefire. He needs to call on Netanyahu and say, stop funding the war. I want him to call.
You're not listening to me.
Okay.
Okay? The other night in the State of the Union. Is he going to stop arming Israel? That's the way
way to stop the war. It's a shame.
As he's getting into his Tesla, I thought Democrats hated Elon. He's getting into his Tesla here, and he realized as he's walking away, he realized I have to say something here. I cannot be quiet as this lady is saying all these things. So it took him a few seconds to catch it. It's okay. I do need to start saying something, because how would it look that he's putting his food in his Tesla and he hasn't spoken a word or even given like a bullshit answer, which he begins to do? It would have looked terrible. So if you wonder, how could atrocities happen in Germany with the Holocaust? How could they massacre the native population in the United States? How could they enslave people? It's people like this, people like Joe Biden, people that keep their mouths closed when these atrocities are happening. And for this guy, NiCK, to just simply say, oh, just watch the State of the Union. You mean that the hour of lies? What is accomplished by watching that? But that's all he has, NiCK. That's all he has. Wait, go ahead. I'll let you chime in on this video since I know this was your friend that did this.
Good job to Kay. And I'm glad she kept the pressure up, because you guys see what these ruling class scum do. They lie, and they that's literally gaslighting, and to the point where you hear Katie, she's a extremely nice person. So she like when he says, "Oh well, Biden says ceasefire at the State of the Union." Oh, sorry, I got silence on my phone. Biden called for ceasefire at State of the Union. They're like, "Wait, what?" You see that like that moment hesitation. That gaslighting by liberals is meant to cause that hesitation. So I'm glad that Katie kept the pressure up. She's like, all right, whatever, that's bullshit. So she's even if he did, is he calling for Netanyahu to stop the war? Like, what are you doing? So, what I said, it actually does take a lot of courage to do this. It's very easy to turn your brain off and just go through the motion, not win that confrontation. But the horrors of this conflict, the lack of humanity from these people, they should never have a moment of peace. So big shout out to them. Big shout out to them.
Yeah. To wrap up this segment, I just want to add a little bit from Aaron Mate, what he wrote on his no, this is not a Substack. This is his own website. AaronMate.net. If you wanted to go and check out some of his work, is AaronMate.net. Or he pronounces it Mate. The Biden doctrine in Gaza: bomb, starve, and deceive. And we're seeing a lot of the deceiving in the media is the deceive part. Just reading a little bit, not all of it. As at his State of the Union address Thursday, President Biden announced that the U.S. military will install a temporary pier off the coast of Gaza to deliver emergency aid to the besieged enclave, where more than 2.2 million Palestinians face a humanitarian crisis, including starvation. The pier, which will take weeks, if not months, what I heard was 2 months, to complete, will be built by U.S. soldiers. The U.S., Biden claimed, has been leading international efforts to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza and believe that protecting and saving innocent lives has to be a priority.
Now think about that, CJ. Think about that. That's the United States admitting that humanitarian aid is not going into Gaza. So ask yourself the question, why is that the case? What is the factor that is preventing aid to go into Gaza? The answer is obvious: Israel. So instead of forcing Israel with the threat of withholding U.S. aid to allow humanitarian aid in, a very simple solution to this problem. You see how they go a long roundabout way to solve a problem that can be solved simply by the United States severing ties with Israel? And guys, don't listen to what the United States is saying at face value. Don't believe their narrative. When I hear this shit, it terrifies me, because this is the excuse the United States military is using so they can have occupation in Gaza. You understand? We will have U.S. military and troops on the ground into Gaza. This is their cover story for troops being on the ground in Gaza. Do you guys understand? They know this is not a fucking solution to the and I've been wanting to commentate on this for a while because this story's been in the news for a while, so that's why I'm glad to do the show with you because you was gonna cover all the stuff I wanted to hit on. This port story had been driving me crazy, bro. It was like one of the two topics I was about to talk about in my hotspot on Friday. I chose the AIPAC story instead, but this story condemns the United States more than ever. They think it does the opposite, but it condemns them because it shows that the fact that they even had to build a port shows that the state that you're supporting is blocking humanitarian aid. That's why you need the port in the first place. Secondly, they're using this as an excuse, and mark my words, how many times I've been wrong? How many times have I led you astray, my friends? Mark my words, they are using this as an excuse so they can have U.S. military on the ground in Gaza. Quote me now, question me now, quote me later. Go ahead, CJ.
NiCK, I remember this news dropping when I was in stream, and I had commented on it, and I was just like, man, I was telling everybody, I was like, I'm just thinking this through, and I'm not saying I have any evidence, but I'm like, aren't they having an issue with Yemen around in that area of Gaza? I'm like, if they wanted to kind of stop that, wouldn't they build a port right out there with troops? And that's what I was thinking. I was like, man, this shit doesn't seem like what they're talking about. So to the point that you're making, I didn't even put together that this could be a cover story for troops to be in Gaza. Now, NiCK, the troops, U.S. troops being in Gaza would mean what? That they're helping the Palestinians, right, NiCK? Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying, NiCK? They're bringing food, right, NiCK? Is
only the sweetest of summer children will believe that kind of story. Let's continue. CJ. I gotta wrap after this one, but I can continue.
Yeah, for sure.
Go ahead, CJ.
Okay. In reality, the emergency project underscores Biden's real priority to prolong Israel's rampage in Gaza. The U.S. is even willing to deploy its own military for face-saving public relations stunts. And to his point, it's my opinion that what we're seeing, this whole dance of we don't want him. We're telling him not to do this. This is a dance to buy time so they can kill more people.
Yes,
CJ, the point of a colonial settler project is to eliminate the natives by any means, whether they're displaced, whether they're killed. And you're just prolonging this, and we're trying to joust with them. We're fighting. Yeah, we are. Meanwhile, thousands of people are dying, and that's the point, NiCK. That's the point, in my opinion. Let's continue with criticisms of Biden's Gaza complicity increasing inside the Democratic Party and threatening him at the ballot box. The pier is the latest in a series of token gestures aimed at fraying concern for Gazans while providing unfeathered support to the Israeli government that is indiscriminately attacking them.
Before you move to the last paragraph, do you mind if I read this for Zoya? Another banger from Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life, my good friend. They're establishing a port to complete a canal meant to rival Suez. Am I saying that right? There are also trillions in oil and gas reserves right there, CJ.
Oh, man.
The United States goes where they can steal resources. Zoya's Love, Zoya's Life. You can continue.
These motherfuckers cannot be any little. Oh, we're doing this nice thing. No, you're not. What's your fucking angle, motherfucker? Because you don't do nothing nice for nobody. So that's this right here.
They don't do nice stuff for their own civilians, their own citizens. They don't do nice shit for. But the average sweet summer liberal child believes that they building a port because they care about Palestinians. Can't even provide healthcare to their own people, but you think they care about anyone else? But go ahead, CJ.
It is truly stunning. All right, so let's continue. The White House has carried out airdrops over Gaza that amounts to a few trucks worth of aid, compared to thousands of trucks that Israel is blocking with U.S. support. Quote, The food, water, and medical supplies so desperately needed by people in Gaza are sitting just across the border. And I just covered this. I showed a video. I can't remember the stream, Nick. I showed a video where it's literally hundreds of trucks just sitting outside of the border. They literally just got to open the border, and literally hundreds of trucks would immediately just be able to cross in and get supplies to them. It's just sitting there. But to continue, quote, Doctors Without Borders said Friday, quote, Israel needs to facilitate rather than block the flow of supplies. Why don't you just facilitate a safe passage? Meaning, if you think it's Hamas in there, put your drivers there then. You put your IDF let them drive the trucks if you think somehow, they're sneaking in. You stand there. You stand there with IDF soldiers and let the people come get the food if you think Hamas is going to steal it from them. There's a way to do this. So, and he's saying, why don't you facilitate that? Because that's not the point.
Not only that, there have been very credible on-the-ground reporting that IDF soldiers are protecting Israeli terrorists who are blocking aid. And in fact, there was a picture I saw where there was an Israeli soldier right next to these Israeli fascists waving flags on their way to a protest, and the soldier's like, "Oh, go ahead, tippy-doo-dah on your way, sir." Like they're not doing anything, not doing anything remotely to stop them from accomplishing their objective. So what are they doing? They're protecting them, which many on the ground reporting has exposed. So and the messaging that came from our establishment is that these are lone wolf Israeli settlers. Absolutely not the case. I promise you, it's going to come out later that the Israeli government was helping coordinate this in some way. Some Israeli organization. God, this shit is not. I will say this 100%. I think this is more my opinion. This is more theory more than anything. I will be 100% clear when I believe that. I 100% believe this whole thing with Israeli settlers blocking aid. That shit is not organic. They want to do it, don't get me wrong, but that shit is definitely being directed by some genocidal motherfucker that's going to be exposed later. I promise you. But anyway, CJ, they're not important. Let's continue.
Yeah, the U.S. military pier, Biden claimed, will, quote, will enable a massive increase in the amount of humanitarian assistance getting into Gaza every day. His own aides acknowledged that this is a ruse. According to the Washington Post, administration and officials quietly concede that, quote, only by securing the opening of an additional land crossing would there be enough aid to prevent famine. Meaning, food by boat, food through the off the shores is not enough. You have to open up ground openings in order to get enough food in to stave off a famine. This port will not do that. And given that the pier will take a minimum of 30 days to complete, that raises questions about how famine in Gaza will be staved off in the critical days ahead. The White House has given the answer, and this is the last one. The White House has given the answer.
I read a little bit ahead. This is some fucking ridiculous ass shit. Go ahead and read this. Listen to this.
Rather than compel Israel to open those land crossings and prevent famine, it is instead adopting an Israeli position that the land crossing can be used as a tool of leverage against Hamas, and that Israel can control everything that gets in. If ceasefire talks, Israel has demanded that Hamas release hostages in exchange for, at best, a six weeks pause to the massacre. Go ahead, Nick.
How is this not headlines, everyone? And please keep that right there. I skimmed a little bit ahead and I literally was like, what? So, if I'm reading this correctly, and keep me honest, my friends, the White House is saying instead of opening up these lands, like you explained, you're not going to prevent a famine by only having the port. You got to open up the lands and open up the entire aid apparatus in order to prevent a famine. So what the White House is saying in response is that, oh, no, we're not going to do that. We agree with Israel's position of using that aid, the aid that's used to prevent a famine, as leverage against Hamas.
Yes.
Using starvation as a tool of war. How is this not headlines everywhere? This is the White House admitting that they agree with Israel in their strategy of using starvation as a tool of war, something that John Kirby said in a press conference not too long ago that they wasn't doing. This is quite literally the argument that South Africa was using at the ICJ. That Israel is using starvation as a tool of war. That this is the collective punishment, a war crime. That these are acts of genocide. And here in this passage, it's unbelievable. I didn't read this. I skimmed ahead. I was like, bro, wait, did they just say that? That's them admitting it. My jaw is to the floor. And that's a perfect way to wrap this segment up, because that's like them admitting it, but it doesn't mean anything anymore. It doesn't mean anything. Like, they can openly admit that they're being genocidal, because they will say genocidal to prove genocide at the court of law. And I'll pass it to you, CJ. I know you want to chime in. To prove genocide in the court of law, you need to prove intent. And whenever I hear these Zionists, I heard the argument, the pathetic argument between Rabbi Shmuley and Norman Finkelstein, where Norman Finkelstein took all his credentials away. I was about to say doctorate, but he don't got doctorate. He took all his credentials away. Norman Finkelstein completely embarrassed him. But that's one of the arguments that he used. He's like, there's no evidence that there's genocidal intent. Nigga, your strategy is against the fucking ICJ Genocide Convention. This is really unbelievable, and it really shows that international law doesn't mean anything. But go ahead, CJ. You can.
I was just gonna say, let me actually. He doesn't complete his thought. Let me just read this other part.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, to complete his thought here, it says, as one U.S. official told the Post, such a deal would allow for a significant surge, meaning a deal for land crossing, in aid delivery. The choice of words is striking. For months, U.S. officials have been promising to surge aid in Gaza. The fact that such a surge is now explicitly conditional underscores, meaning the surge is on condition if you do something. It's completely conditional, underscores that those prior vows were a lie and cynical cover for the actual policy of helping Israel block aid to the people of Gaza. It's just terrible, Nick. We are a psychopathic country with psychopathic policies, and then we dress them up, and we have a buffer class, the NATO left, the bourgeoisie, that kind of goes along with it with obvious lies that you know they're not trying to do any of this stuff, but you have people that go, they said they're trying, so we might as well. You get what I'm saying? That's literally the bar that they got to clear. But your last words before you check out of here, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah, I can read some super chats before I leave, so you don't get buried too much. I read a few, so you don't get buried behind too much. I'll be back at NiCK at night tomorrow night, and also have NiCK at night Thursday evening. Still booking up some guests for this week, so I'll let you guys know here very soon. I think I'm gonna do tomorrow solo. I got a lot of cover, so I think tomorrow gonna be a solo show, but we see. I'll read a few super chats and I'll dip just to save you a few later. Thank you for the 199 Buckeye fan. Rip Akira Toriyama, absolutely. The creator of Dragon Ball, the legend himself. Rip Buckeye fan 199. Thank you for the $20 of violin for the excellent scroll across the bottom screen. Thank you. Well said. I said this on Twitter. I had a tweet because while I posted about Dragon Ball on Twitter, because I feel like the older generations don't understand how big it was for our generation. Like, I'm a younger millennial, and younger people. One of the reasons why I got into martial arts in the first place, I trained Muay Thai for 12 years. I credit martial arts for saving my life in a way. It gave me a sense of purpose when I was going through mental health crisis, when I was going through personal loss. After I graduated high school, my best friend that I knew my entire life killed himself. It was very traumatic. I talk about this stuff scarcely on this channel, but I was going through a lot. Martial arts played a big role in saving my life. One of the reasons why I was interested in martial arts in the first place was Goku. That motherfucker was cold. We used to watch the motherfucker fight, and I thought he was cold. And that was one of the reasons why I got into martial arts. And martial arts it shaped me in such a big way. So you can make a very dramatic argument that Dragon Ball shaped who I am in a big way. Like, you had Goku fighting against the evil Frieza army. That's why I'm against Empire. because Frieza was a colonial imperialist, and the Saiyans were fighting against Frieza and their army. Like these are like the fundamental tenets that build, I think, a lot of anti-war generation, right? But anyway, that's my little that's my what I want to say about Akira Toriyama, because he was a very influential. Like I feel like a lot of people don't understand how big Dragon Ball was. But anyway, thank for super chats.
Was Dragon Ball Z, was that the introduction for the United States as far as like Japanese or Asian animation? Like, was that, or is it something before that happened? Or is that like one of the first ones?
It definitely was Dragon Ball.
Definitely Dragon
Ball.
Yeah,
definitely Dragon
Ball.
That's the
first one. Yeah,
Dragon Ball. Like, if it wasn't for Dragon Ball, anime wouldn't be shit. Like Dragon Ball inspired One Piece. One Piece is the big anime now.
That's the one my wife watches all the time.
Yeah, so and like Dragon Ball was like, I bet anime nerds probably mad at me. There are probably other examples, but in the West, Dragon Ball's like the grandfather.
No, that's what I'm asking. Like in the West, because that's when I think back of just anime, I'm trying to think what's the first in the United States I began to. It was Dragon Ball Z. That was it. Yeah,
I remember because I grew up in the 90s. In school, if you didn't watch the new episode of Dragon Ball Z, you was out of the loop, fam. Like you was out of the loop. Like it was like Dragon Ball was one of the few things that united everyone, like the nerds, the jocks, everyone fucking liked Dragon Ball. Every one of the things we all come around and talk about what happened on Dragon Ball the next day. You know what I mean? But anyway, that's my words on that. It's a big deal. Everyone been talking about Akira Toriyama. It was one of them deaths that happened when Akira Toriyama died, and everyone texted me like, "Bro, you know the dude that made Dragon Ball died?" Everyone in the hood fuck with Dragon Ball Z. Black people love Dragon Ball Z, fam. Like people now realize how much black people love anime, and Dragon Ball Z is one of the reasons why. Anyway, let's move on. Thanks for the $5, Barton Health. Heath, San Francisco Council resolution voted peace in Palestine. I covered this in my hotspot video as well, show you how tyrannical Joe Biden is. 70 cities. CJ, do you know that 70 cities voted for a ceasefire in Palestine?
No, I didn't know it was up to that many. I kept seeing one at a time, keep adding, but 70? That's a lot.
So the commander-in-chief, the president of the United States, is not only going against the will of the populace, against the will of his people, he's going against the will of 70 of his own cities, bro. So crazy. Well, thank you for the $5 and the thought. I'll read one more super chat and I'll pass to you. I know you got quite a few topics. Thanks for the 279, Quarty. Two-state solution equal continued Jewish ethno-state. Absolutely. I had to explain this to Marianne Williamson like the fucking child that she is. I still don't think, like, guys, did they solve apartheid in South Africa with a two-state solution? So why would you see the solution of one apartheid and then choose a completely different fucking solution? In apartheid South Africa, they like, nigga, one state, everyone have equal rights. So you guys see the right solution to apartheid that was historically proven to be the solution to apartheid. Meanwhile, progressives in the West like, oh, how about we do something different? What about a state where there's not equal rights under the law? When I was ignorant, when I was more ignorant about politics, when I was learning about this stuff, there was a time where I supported the two-state solution. I understand why Palestinians who want relief from Israeli violence support two-state solution, because they want to prevent, they don't want Israel to kill the motherfuckers. But the people who for the liberation of the Palestinian people, calling for a two-state solution where you have a crazy radical apartheid regime right next door, is literally incoherent. And one of the things you don't think about when you first study the video, yeah, that sounds good, having two states. Like one of the things that it sounds good, and I will admit that. It's one of the things that sounds good until you start thinking about it. You're gonna trust a fucking tyrannical fascist regime who gets arms from another tyrannical fascist regime to implement a two-state solution? A two-state solution requires implementation. That's why in order to bring fascists to heel, you must force them to acknowledge the rights of other people, meaning one state. That's what we did to racists in our country. You can't do this thing where you half-ass it. That way you have separate but equal. Did that work out? No, it did not work out. They realized that in South Africa, so they have one state, everyone have equal rights. And how is that controversial? How is that a weird thing to say, CJ? When I say, hey, the solution to the Israel-Palestine issue is to have one state where Israelis and Palestinians are treated equal. And to be honest, there are a lot of Palestinians like, why should we treat these Israeli settlers equal? So that's not even the most radical position, fam. Because the most radical, and I think the most correct position, is that all these settler colonials should be kicked out. But most rational people realize that that's not possible. So let's call for a one-state solution. Everyone stays here. Everyone have equal rights under the law. That's how you solve apartheid. Everyone pretending otherwise, the Marianne Williamson, the progressive, oh, they'll do two-state solutions. It's absurd, fam, and I'm here to tell you guys that. It's absurd. There's a point in my very, very early development where I supported a two-state solution. Then you learn about the issue, you learn about what Israel is, you learn about how apartheid is supposed to be solved, and you realize that it's fucking a ridiculous ass that comes from POC leftists that don't want to disrupt the social circle. But anyway, that's my last thought. There you go. Always great to have NiCK and CJ. I'll be back next week. We do NiCK and CJ again next Monday.
I think we're gonna have Shama Sawant next Monday.
Oh, let's
I think that's what I think that's what we're trying to get. Zoya's working on. Hopefully, she's able to go. If not next Monday, the following Monday. We're trying to make sure it's NiCK and CJ when we bring her on. So, but yeah, Nick.
Yeah, I see you guys. I'm making a new hotspot tomorrow, so new hotspot video come out tomorrow.
Oh, what's you know topics? Anything for tomorrow? Are you doing foreign policy or is it something big story that you're working on?
Like 90% of my hotspots are foreign policy, and then whenever I do cover domestic, is something substantive. So I'll let you know. I'm floating a few stories right now. I usually make my decision more. I usually have like a tons of stories I siphon through, which is why make sure you guys follow Hotspot. I consider them partners with RBN. They do fantastic anti-imperialist work. Nico heads that. Nico, congratulations, by the way, who has a new child. Very proud. Love the work that Nico has done with Hotspot. And I think the Hotspot videos really helped sharpen my commentary because they forced me to be very concise. Had to do a lot of research on them. I juggle a few stories. I talked to the Hotspot people. They helped me edit those videos. I had to send them receipts. Like you guys see when they edit the videos, I had to send them receipts. So I got to do a ton of reading. So I think that helped me with my commentary overall. So I greatly enjoyed making them. So hope you guys stay tuned for the next one. Anyway, I gotta get out of here. I see you guys. Stay tuned. CJ got a lot of great.
All right, Nick. Yeah, I got two more stories that I'm gonna cover. Like I said, it was a lot. When I hit up Nick yesterday, I was like, Nick, man, it's a lot of shit to cover today. I was like, it might be a 3-hour stream. Nick hang in as long as he could, but I got a couple of more stories, and then we're gonna get out of here. We had to take it to Norman Finkelstein. We know, the great work he does. He has a way of just destroying people effortlessly. So I wanted to make sure I inserted this, and then I have another indoctrination segment that I'm going to cover. I'm supposed to do the Candace. I'm going to see if I can get to the Candace stuff too, but let's start with this one here. This is Norman Finkelstein. I don't know which network he's on right now, but I'm sorry, yeah, it's at the top. TRT World Live. I don't know who they are, but this is where he was on, and he's speaking about the topic of Palestine, and also some foreign leaders.
President Biden has turned the Gaza genocide into a photo op for himself. Ursula von der Leyen was one of the key supporters of the genocide, is now trying to clear her name. She's a bona fide war criminal. It's not for no reason that Claire Daly in the European Parliament calls her Frau Genocide, or as I prefer to call her, the Nazi princess. Now let's get down to the facts. There's no problem with getting food and medicine to the periphery of Gaza. There are hundreds of trucks which are ready to go in. It doesn't change anything one whit if there is a floating pier on the water periphery of Gaza. That's not the problem. The problem is getting the food and the medicine from the periphery to the people. And Israel is blocking that. It's blocking it both physically and also by its continued indiscriminate bombing to terrorize the civilian population. There's something truly sickening when the President of the United States turns the martyrdom of the people of Gaza into an election year photo op He's trying to recreate the Berlin airlift of 1948, this time by building a floating pier. I don't know why he just doesn't call on Captain Kirk from the Starship Enterprise.
And this is what people like about Norman, these little quirky, funny sort of phrasings that he inserts in his analysis, but he's speaking to what Nick and I was just talking about, but he's kind of honing in on the point, which is there's aid there. So building the port isn't to get aid there because aid is already there. The problem is the blockade. That's the problem. So this illusion that they're trying to present that the port is somehow going to bring the needed food that they don't have, that is just simply a misrepresentation of what the port can and will do, and it's an underrepresentation of what's actually happening on the ground in Israel with this upcoming famine that's happening, that will be taking place in Gaza.
To beam down Morton pot pies. This is so preposterous, so ridiculous. The idea that any sane person, any rational person can take seriously at this point in time the words of the two key supporters of the Gaza genocide outside Israel, namely Ursula von der Leyen, Frau Genocide, the Nazi princess, and President Biden. It's simply bewildering. But frankly, I don't believe it fools anybody except for those ghouls inside the Democratic Party bubble.
And Norman, President Biden and Ursula von der Leyen would no doubt refute those claims were they here to do so.
They might deny the claims, but the factual evidence denies them the option of refuting the claims. There can be no question whatsoever that the two key supporters of the Gaza genocide outside the state of Israel are Ursula von der Leyen and Joe Biden. That is not up for debate. That is not controversial. That is an irrefutable fact.
And clearly what the people of Gaza need right now, Norman, is humanitarian aid in huge amounts, and therefore...
They need bombs to stop. That's what they need. They need the U.S. to stop sending, having secret sales of weapons. I remember the reporting, and it was from one of Nick's hotspots, 83% of the bombs dropped are U.S. bombs. Oh, I got that from Bernie Sanders. 83%. So if U.S. wasn't supplying it, are you telling me 83% of the bombs dropped would be eliminated? Does that mean 83% of the people who have been killed would be alive? That's how I look at it. But let's listen. The host tries to get in there with Norman, but Norman is just, when he has his head of steam, it's hard to stop him.
Or what is needed is a diplomatic solution to try and establish further abilities to get that aid into Gaza. Do you hold any positive hopes of a diplomatic solution?
No, I do not. Because Israel is determined, it's determined either to ethnically cleanse Gaza, turn Gaza into a wasteland, or to dispose of physically every living person, every sentient being in Gaza. And the United States will not exert the force to stop it. So I cannot say optimistic about a diplomatic settlement, but we should be clear on the facts. Number one, there is no lack of food or medicine earmarked for the people of Gaza. It's there. It doesn't require a floating bathtub. It's right there at the gates of Gaza. It's Israel that's blocking the delivery of the foodstuffs and the medicine. Number two, the chief supporters of the Gaza genocide are now trying to clear their names by pretending to be concerned about the fate of the people of Gaza.
And Norman, just while we have you briefly, you said back in 2020 that you'd given up on Gaza, much as it pained you. You'd spent enough of your life documenting and chronicling the plight of the people of Gaza, and that much as it pained you, you felt you had to therefore turn your back on it and move on with your life. How do you feel about Gaza and the future of Palestinians?
It would be a sin against man and a sin against God to turn your back on the people who have suffered relentless martyrdom by a heartless and at this point pathologically sick occupying power.
He has a way of destroying. I hope when I'm his age, I have gained enough wisdom and just don't give a fuck the way that he does. I think I'm close. I'm pretty close to the don't give a fuck sort of understanding. I think I'm pretty close to that. Where's my next? All right, so I want to go to this, and actually I got maybe 2 more segments. So it's actually I got a bunch to do. I thought this was an interesting clip, and let's get to this part of the presentation. And this is an indoctrination ritual for Israeli college students. And I'll read. This is from Hotspot. An indoctrination ritual for Israeli college students studying abroad. A living example of how Israel graduates terrorists and sends them all over the world to work in banks, media, etc., to promote the colonization of Palestinian and of Palestine, and further the Israeli genocide. That is such a good point, because when you look at our government, to the point of them saying they graduate a bunch of terrorists and send them to work all over the world, if you look at our government, there's a lot of Zionists. There's a lot of dual citizenship with Israel. There's a lot of that going on. I forget the graphic, but I vaguely remember Anthony Blinken being on there, Janet Yellen being on there, just several people throughout our government. But let's listen to this. This is a short video. This is not a real long segment.
Israel! We're called Jews because we come from Judea, exactly. We're called Jews because we come from, thank you. They're going to tell you that Israel is a colonialist state. It is not. Jews went back to Israel because we had nowhere else to go, and we actually decolonized it from Britain. In fact, Israel is the most successful example of indigenous people going back. It's the best.
I was let it play. This is just a bold-faced lie.
Land back project on
Land
Earth.
back. How dare you?
Yeah.
How fucking dare you?
They will tell you that Israel is an apartheid state. They will tell you that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. They will tell you that. They have been saying that for years. It was a lie then, and it is a lie now. They want to insult the memory of the Holocaust and the 6 million Jews murdered in an actual systematic attempt. Jewish people are done hiding.
So let's talk about the video. She says they're indigenous. They're just going back to their land. So I have a separate video that kind of counters that, and many of you may have seen this video before. I've played it many times on my stream. So let's bring it up. Let me bring up this counter video to speak to when she says we are indigenous. This is a total like an indoctrination camp. They're going to tell you this. This is what you say. They're going to tell you this. They're going to say we're indigenous because of this. We're called Jews because we're descendants of Judea. Like all of these stuff that she's saying can be proven by DNA, right? So let's go to this video where it talks about DNA
tests are illegal.
and Israel. Oops.
DNA tests are illegal.
1 second, everybody. 1 second here.
DNA tests are illegal.
Why doesn't it get bigger here?
Ask me.
In this video, he talks about how DNA tests in Israel are illegal.
DNA tests are illegal in Israel. Ask me why.
It's even illegal in the state of Israel to obtain this. And if you do obtain it, it's illegal.
You know what? I don't like that. I want this to play.
DNA tests are illegal in Israel.
Let's refresh this and see why. See if I can fix it. I wanted to expand
DNA
more.
Tests are illegal in Israel.
It's not going to do it. All right, so we'll watch it just like this.
Tests are illegal in Israel. Ask me why.
It's even illegal in the state of Israel to obtain this. And if you do obtain it, it's illegal to show it and or talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel? Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel.
I mean, duh. It doesn't take a PhD or an article from a Jewish newspaper to tell you that Caucasians practicing a religion aren't native to a place where people have been brown for millennia.
This TikTok caused a storm online, with many debating what his results, which show no trace of being from Palestine or the Middle East, despite being Jewish, mean. Yet, in the state of Israel, getting hold of a genealogical DNA test is highly restricted. Yet Dov Aharonov and the Jerusalem Post reported in 2019 that Israel's genetic information law blocks people from buying them from local pharmacies.
I guess boomer Zionists think that if you just throw enough money at troll farms, you don't let people Google 23andMe in Israel, that they'll forget that they're not Middle Eastern. Like, it's not Jesus of Williamsburg, it's Jesus of Nazareth, right? I mean, that's fine. Like, there are dark Jews. There's Jews from Brazil, there's Jews from Ethiopia, and up until the 19th century, everybody was living in Palestine pretty peacefully. Well, I guess until the Nakba, when they got displaced or killed alongside the Muslims and the Christians. I guess even back then, in the middle of the desert, if you have a brown neighbor, I guess property values go down. I don't make the rules, but they sure as hell are racist as So then, if Caucasian Jews don't come from the Middle East, duh, where do they come from? I do not want to be called anti-Semitic, even if I've got Harvard in the background. So I'm just going to let another Ashkenazi geneticist tell you where you come from.
Surprisingly, GPS took us to northeastern Turkey. At first, we did not understand the results, but when we looked at some old books, we found 4 ancient villages named Iskenaz, Eskenaz, Ashenaz, and Ashkuz, names that may be derived from the word Ashkenaz. This place resides on a hub of trade networks. This is where Silk Roads and other trade routes converge.
That's Aaron Al-Hayek. He's a Jewish geneticist from Johns Hopkins who wanted to figure out where Caucasian Jews come from because, you know, like, map out genome, get ahead of diseases. His contact in Israel is Dr. Aurelia Oppenheim. She's a geneticist in the University of Jerusalem, and she runs the anti-aging department. And for a while, the government called both of these two Nazis. Would you like to know why? Because they both figured out where Caucasian Jews come from. Wink, wink. They're 40% Turkish, and newsflash, 40% Mongolian. As if the lactose intolerance didn't give it away. Like, hold on. Do you understand what this means? Like, okay, sure. Like, you don't have any ancestral tie to Israel, but like you don't have yellow fever. You're just dating your own race. Like real talk. What do you see in this picture? Like, is it a pierogi or is it a dumpling? Like, you say gefilte fish. I just see fish balls without the soup. Like, brother.
Love that video. It's like at 2 million views. You can check it out on my Twitter page. I'm not sure why it wouldn't expand larger. It is slightly larger, but to go back to the point. Now, you heard that video talk about DNA and all that stuff. You have to ask yourself, why is the ability or DNA test, why is it outlawed or heavily restricted where the vast majority of people cannot buy one? Cannot get one? Why would that be? What is the disadvantage of knowing your DNA? What is the issue? Unless you are trying to hide where your DNA leads to, you would not be able to say some of the things that she's going to say in this video. Let's listen again.
Israel! We're called Jews because we come from Judea.
You could take a DNA test to find that out.
Exactly. We're called Jews because we come from, thank you. They're going to tell you that Israel is a colonialist state. It is not. Jews went back to Israel because we had nowhere else to go, and we actually decolonized it from Britain. In fact, Israel is the most successful example of indigenous people going back. It's the best.
Indigenous people going back where? You're from Turkey. That's where that's where your DNA goes back to.
Land back project on earth. Yeah. They will tell you that Israel is an apartheid state. They will tell you that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza. They will tell you that. They have been saying that for years. It was a lie then, and it is a lie now.
Walk to your bank one day and go inside, and the person that is the teller maybe came from this place. You're going to, 10 years later or 20 years from now, we're going to have people in government that was in this indoctrination session. The point being, just like in the United States government, we have a bunch of Zionists throughout our government. Maybe that's the reason why policy, or that's the reason why there isn't going to be a policy change. That's the reason why people in the media, they're like, yeah, nothing's going to change in policy-wise. So what can we do messaging-wise to get people to come back to Biden? Because they know the policy isn't going to change. Why would the policy change when you have Zionists throughout government in positions of power? But anyway, let's move on. That was actually a longer segment, a longer talk on that video than I wanted. But let's move on to the next thing here, which, oops, let's go back up top. Sellout labor. Sellout labor, and then I'm going to end with the Candace versus Rabbi Shmuley. So sellout labor, this one, and then Shmuley will be the next one. So I'll bring up this headline first. Let's do that. Let's start with the headline. Where is it? Labor sellout. Where's my labor sellout banner? 1 second, everybody. Did the Norman Finkelstein, this one. That's next. Oh, wow. Maybe I don't have it. UAW president sells out labor. Let's do that. I don't know how I missed that, but whatever. All right, let's start with this headline here. It says, United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain doubles down on support for President Biden after State of the Union address. Now, let's make sure we give the right foundational information before I play the video. So what's happening here? This is the dynamic at play in Michigan. They see what's happening in Michigan with the uncommitted vote, with all the protests, and their lack of ability to change the minds of those people. The people in Dearborn, the mayor of Dearborn, for example, the people, the Arab and Muslim communities, and the people that support the Arab and Muslim communities in Michigan. They're not coming off their stance. They're refusing to support Biden. It's throughout the polls and reflective in the polls. So they go, let's pivot to labor in Michigan, because that's the other big sort of group. It's the Arabs and Muslims, and then it's labor in Michigan. So let's pivot to labor and see if we can, replace the support we have for the people, the progressives, the young people, Black people of color. Let's see if we can replace those voters, that support in Michigan, with labor support. That's why they reach out to Shawn Fain. And what does Shawn Fain do? He falls in line like a trained seal. And again, The headline speaks for itself, but let's get into what they're talking about. Oh, there's my tweet where I say, the face of a sellout. Labor shouldn't support Republicans or Democrat. Union labor is supporting a guy who broke a strike. Now think about that. You are a union person, and the person you are supporting broke a union strike. One of the bigger union strikes, too. So let's listen. This weekend, he went on this terrible show with Michael Steele, Simone Sanders, and another person. It's 3 people that host it. It's called The Weekend. It's pretty terrible. But Sean went on there to talk about his support, and let's listen to a little bit of it.
The state of one particular union got a shout out in the president's address to Congress this week. President Biden emphasized his support for the United Auto Workers Union and reminded Americans that he joined them on the picket line when workers were striking last year. Now Biden's plans to tout that union support on the road. And joining us now is United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain. Welcome to the table, my friend. It's good to have you having the conversation this morning. Appreciate you having me, yeah.
We're so happy to have you here. There's been a reticence on the part of UAW to endorse President Biden. I'm curious what you can tell me about the conversation you had with him that helped you come around on that.
Well, it wasn't so much the conversation, it's really the actions. And that was one thing we made clear when we took over, when I took over as president, that our endorsements were going to be earned, no longer just freely given.
He's saying the endorsement, because she's asking, tell us, why did you decide what you were hesitant before? And he's like, well, it wasn't a conversation. It was the actions. What actions did Joe Biden commit to support labor? Because I know the actions he did against labor, and that's called breaking a strike.
Given and not just a party affiliation, they were going to be earned by the candidates. And so, there was some disappointment up front when I took over. I think, people expected us just to make an endorsement right away. And but to me, there was work to be done. We had a EV battery transition in industry, then
So what he's talking about is work is Joe Biden literally showing up. That's it. He showed up on a picket line and gave a speech, the speech that's so nondescript. It's words without really telling you anything. And none of the positions that the UAW held that Joe Biden said he supported. He just gave I think you guys should get a fair contract. I think you guys should get a historical pay increase. That's it. Anyway, let's continue, and then I'll move on.
Transition that there was
electric
a lot of
vehicles.
Yeah. So a lot of work that needed to be done in that realm, so that workers weren't left behind. And then obviously we had our contract campaign, a lot of work coming up with the Big 3 fight, and we had a lot of conversations throughout. But at the end of the day, when we made this decision, we had to look at this was a simple decision for us, because when we put both candidates side by side, and in our Big 3 campaign, we use facts, the fact that corporations have made $250 billion and workers were being left behind, the facts that CEOs raised their pay 40% over 4 years while workers were going backwards. And so when we looked at the presidential endorsement, we did the same thing. We put 2 candidates side by side and we used facts. And the facts tell a very telling picture for working class people and for our members in general. If you go back to the recession in 08, 09, Donald Trump blamed the auto workers for what was wrong with the companies. Joe Biden bet on the American worker and gave us a path forward. If you go to 2015.
What does that mean, gave you a path forward? What the fuck does that mean? Sean, labor representative. Now, when he says, when we decided, do you think the we is the rank and file, or do you think the we is the co-opted leadership? When he's talking about when we decided who to pick. Because I'm going to come back to this. I'm going to come back to this video. Let's go to another video, though, really quick here. This is a short video. This is also Sean. Let's listen.
Look, let me be clear about this. A great majority of our members will not vote for President Biden. Yes, some will. But that's the reality of this. The majority of our members are going to vote their paychecks. They're going to vote for an economy that works for them. Look, let me be clear.
Did you hear? If you didn't know, the majority of UAW rank and file are Trump supporters. So how in the hell did leadership decide to endorse Joe Biden when the rank and file wanted Donald Trump? How did that happen? How is leadership representing the union when the union don't want the person that leadership is selecting? This is him admitting that the rank and file is not voting for Joe Biden. The majority. He says a few may.
Look, let me be clear about this. A great majority of our members will not vote for President Biden. Yes, some will. But that's the reality of this.
That's the reality of it. That's what he said. Now let's go back to the video. That's him. Now let's go back to the other video we were watching. This one right here. Let's bring
In the
it back up
president's
here.
address to Congress this week, President
Let
Biden
me
emphasized his
pause it and move it back to where it was here. So let's right here.
Plant in Illinois, the same situation as Lordstown in Ohio, was closed. The community was written off for dead. Joe Biden engaged us and went to work for us to bring that and revive that company.
Engage. These are like, these aren't tangible. These are just abstract things. These aren't tangible things that he's listing that Joe Biden did. These are very abstract, something you can't really pinpoint. He's like, well, what exactly? You can't really get a firm understanding, a tangible understanding of what you mean by things that Biden did. Let's listen. These vague descriptions here. Oh, shoot. Is it? Let's try again. Let's see.
Plants going in there now. So when you compare those things, when you look at the president talking about working class people, when Trump was a candidate for president, he talked about doing a rotation of our jobs in this country, rotating our good paying jobs in the Midwest somewhere else where they would pay less and have us begging for our jobs back at lower pay, driving a race to the bottom. And you had in 19, when Trump was president, GM was on strike for 40 days. What did Donald Trump say or do to support the workers then? Zero. Lordstown.
What did he say or do? He did zero. Fast forward to a Joe Biden presidency. Did Joe Biden do zero? No, he broke the strike. Sean Fain is truly disgusting.
An assembly plant was slated for closure in Ohio in 2019 when Trump was president. He did nothing. Joe Biden, when he was president, and we were on strike in 2023. For the first time in our history, a sitting president joined the picket line. Belvedere Assembly Plant in Illinois.
A sitting president came for a photo op at a picket line. And labor is using that to pretend like that means anything tangible. Like that means he was on your side for what you were asking for.
The same situation as Lordstown in Ohio was closed. The community was written off for dead. Joe Biden engaged us and went to work for us to bring that and revive that company. And we have 2 plants going in there now. So when you compare those things,
the state of one.
Joe Biden engaged us. Like, what does that mean? Engaged us. Like I said, abstract thing.
Class people, when you look at him talking about not cutting Social Security, not cutting Medicare. Donald Trump, every year of his presidency, pushed for cuts to Medicare and Social Security. When you look at all those things, it draws a very distinct picture.
Except we have Joe Biden on video talking about cutting Medicare and Social Security. On video. We've all seen the video. This guy is fucking terrible.
Sure. Joe Biden has a history of serving people and standing with working class people, and Donald Trump has a history of serving himself and standing for the billionaire class.
President Payne, as you are talking, it just really strikes me that, we sit around tables like this all the time. Sometimes they're a little bigger. And people talk about what's not breaking through, what the American people can and cannot feel, how the administration needs to sell or not sell their policies. But what I just heard you say is that that working class people in this country, union workers, members of the United Auto Workers, they have been listening for a very long time.
You bet. I mean, and to me, we just have to focus on facts. And this is the problem.
Like facts, like you just said in your other video, that the vast majority or the majority or the good amount of your rank and file will not be voting for Joe Biden. And then you continue to say maybe a few. Let's also go to this headline here. And I'm getting close to being done here. But let's also go to this here. What Biden and Congress move to ban railroad strike reveals. The move by Washington to override a clear vote by railroaders to reject a White House brokered contract and impose it unilaterally is a major assault on the basic democratic rights of the working class. It is also a strategic experience, the lessons of which workers must learn. All 3 years of the endless rounds of government-mandated mediation imposed on railroaders by the Anti-Worker Railroad Law Act, and after an earlier settlement that the government and union bureaucracy sought to enforce in a vote subject to endless delays and marred by serious irregularities, workers were finally set to launch a national strike on December 9th. Workers face brutal employers who refuse to budge on essential and basic demands, such as paid sick leave and scheduling that allowed them to spend time with their family. Instead, the Biden administration and Congress are moving rapidly to ban strike action and impose the deal. Biden announced Monday night that he would seek congressional intervention, and he met with congressional leaders Tuesday. A vote in Congress where the move is supported by leadership of both parties could take place as soon as Wednesday. The struggle of the railroaders to win their demands have proved two fundamental elements of Marxism, which lay at the heart of its theory of the class struggle. I won't go into that part there. Just wanted to briefly counter what Sean Fain is saying in his video, which is a bold-faced lie, obviously. Let's bring that down and go back to the video and let him continue to throw pie on his own face. Let's listen just to a little bit more here.
As I say this often, Trump's a con man. I mean, he likes to tell people what they want to hear, and he'll say anything to get a result that he wants. But at the end of the day, we have to look at facts. And the facts are very clear. If we look at the body, this isn't my opinions, what I just said to you all. These men.
I mean, there's statements that
in their own
we can
words
call
and their
out.
own actions. And so to me, we have to get working class people focused on reality and facts.
That's like the article and the headline I brought up. And the thing is, the Bernie Sanders industrial complex thinks this guy is a god. This guy is a fucking sellout. He's not part of the rank and file. You know how he's part of the bourgeoisie class. He's not part of the working class. This guy makes several $100,000. So he's not broke by any stretch of the imagination. Here's another headline I'm going to bring up here. So let me actually bring this down. I clicked on it. Let's go to it. Man, time is running out, but I have to get to the Candace stuff because that's part of the thumbnail. This is not clickbait. I'm getting into that. Let me take down this pop-up so we can read. 1 second. I got to make it smaller so I can exit it out. All right. I can Exit it out, and then I can blow it back up. All right, here's the headline. Donald Trump's winning with union that just endorsed Biden. This fucking guy. There he goes again. It's the same video we had. We don't need to play it again. We already played it. Former President Donald Trump received some good news from the union that just endorsed President Biden in the 2024 race. While appearing on Fox News Channel, Your World with Neo Cavuto, United Auto Worker President Sean Fain spoke about the union's recent endorsement of Biden, but noted that the many members may still vote for Trump. Let me be clear, and we just saw this video. Sean Fain said, a great majority of our members will not vote for great. That's a great majority. One, it's majority, meaning 50 plus one. And he's saying great. So that means more than 50 plus one will not vote for Biden. Yes, some will, but that's the reality of it. The majority of our members are going to vote for their paychecks. They're going to vote for an economy that works for them. On Wednesday, the UAW announced that it was endorsing Biden over Trump. Let me continue here. This November, we can stand up and elect someone who wants to stand with us and support our cause, or we can elect someone who will divide us and fight us every step of the way. Fain said in a statement, that's what the choice is about. Donald Trump winning with union that just endorsed Joe Biden. That tells you that even in the union, it's not so democratic, right? It's not so democratic. All right, so I think I'm going to end that segment there, and now I can get to the Candace stuff. This is kind of end on a funny note. This is not a serious segment here, and in fact, I call it a clown fight or a clown's fight. Rabbi Shmuley against Candace Owens, because I don't consider Candace Owens a serious person. For some reason, some people in the political talk space have forgotten about Candace Owens' history, because she in the last year or maybe 2 years, she's trying to polish herself, make herself seem more legitimate than the crazy shit she used to do. So she's just polishing herself and trying to seem normal. And some people are buying that. I'm not one of them that's buying that. But let's go to that part. It's the debate. And so if you didn't know the story, where's that? If you didn't know the story, Rabbi Shmuley and Candace Owens are in some sort of feud. And the feud is over her criticism or opinions about what's happening in Israel, which doesn't sound good to him. Apparently, that he doesn't like what they're saying. So let's listen to her here in this short video here.
Kanye West, notoriously, obviously, when he tweeted out, I'm about to go DEFCON 3 on some Jews, and the media freaked out, and people in the Jewish community were understandably very scared, not knowing what he meant. And I very much abstained from speaking much about the issue because people were so emotional that people couldn't hear, even if I had shared. And even when Kanye did share that he was speaking about specific people in Hollywood that he believed were coming after him and were trying to control him. Rabbi Shmuley was threatening me, and it wasn't just him, it was also his daughter. They were messaging me saying, don't mess with Jews. Very bizarre stuff, and they have not stopped, to be clear. And so what I believe is something that should be explored is whether or not what's happening is that, just like within all communities, there are gangs, right? Gangs can form. We understand this. In the Black community, we've got the Bloods and we've got the Crips. Well, imagine if the Bloods and the Crips were doing horrific things, murdering people, controlling people with blackmail. And then every time a person spoke out about it, the Bloods and the Crips would call those people racist, would get the media to say those people were racist. Any person that was talking about a specific gang, a small group of people, would say, oh my God, no. That's like slavery. You can't at all say anything bad about the Bloods and the Crips. And the entire Black community believed it and was scared and thought, oh my God, like, is slavery actually coming back? But what if that is what is happening right now in Hollywood, if there is just a very small ring of specific people who are using the fact that they are Jewish to shield themselves from any criticism? It's food for thought, right? And I think, again, there have been enough people that are speaking out about a ring in Hollywood, also a ring potentially in DC, that we should start to ask those questions. All of us, Black, Spanish, Jewish, Chinese, Japanese, all Americans should want answers, because this appears to be something that is quite sinister.
All right, so I started with the shorter video first. And let's read what Rabbi responds. Actually, no, I don't want to
Kanye West,
that part.
notorious.
I don't want to read that part yet.
Obviously, when he...
Let's pause that. What I want to do is play this other part here. Now, I'm going to play the longer version of the clip we just saw. That clip was edited. They edited out the part of where it shows Rabbi Shmuley's daughter and Rabbi Shmuley. So I'm going to play that. But first, I want to play this snippet when Rabbi Shmuley first heard of Candace Owens doing a stream. He heard it before he saw the stream. This is what he put out.
Hi, everybody. My understanding is, although I have not seen it myself, Candace Owens launched a broadside attack against me and my daughter, Rachalea, for calling her out on her anti-Semitism, Jew hatred, and bigotry over the last year, at least. This is a woman who defended Kanye West when he said he loved Hitler. I want to tell you something. It is possible, although I'm not positive, but I think it's very possible that even David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the Klan, never publicly praised Hitler. To praise Hitler, you have to be a man of such hatred. Kanye West, they say he's troubled. That's an excuse. He's a vile Jew hater. And Candace Owens is his bestie, best friend, defended him, said that he's not an anti-Semite, has always stuck by him. Then when October 7th came, when the whole world saw Jewish women shot in their vaginas, Candace Owens said she could not yet come to a moral decision on who was right and wrong about October 7th. Hi, everybody.
So her refusal to come to a decision to take a side. Remember, she had the feud with Ben Shapiro over this, and then Rabbi Shmuley sort of joined the attacking on her because of that stance that she had. So now let's go to the longer version. Now, just to be clear, the what I'm playing you in the rep about Rabbi Shmuley and her is part of a longer stream that's talking about Michael Jackson and Diddy and expose about what happened. And Rabbi Shmuley was very engaged, was I wouldn't say best friends, but was friends with Michael Jackson. And when Michael Jackson died, he came out with a book. So that's just to let you know that's why you see what you see on the screen. But let's move forward to the part that we want to talk about. And now let's watch the full version of the clip. So it's going to include the part we saw earlier, but it's now going to play the part where the footage of the daughter and the rabbi.
Just now, Michael Jackson, we also have seen these claims with Kanye West, notoriously, obviously, when he tweeted out, I'm about to go DEFCON 3 on some Jews, and the media freaked out, and people in the Jewish community were understandably very scared, not knowing what he meant. And I very much abstained from speaking much about the issue because people were so emotional that people couldn't hear, even if I had shared. And even when Kanye did share that he was speaking about specific people in Hollywood that he believed were coming after him and were trying to control him. He actually named some of those individuals. He shared personal text messages of a friend of his, a personal trainer to the stars, who again happens to be Jewish, who was threatening to put him in the hospital and to drug him against his will. Harley Pasternak is his name, and the media barely reported on those text messages that he shared publicly because obviously he was enemy number one. And here's what else I will tell you. When that Kanye situation went down, I was being threatened by a person named Rabbi Shmuley, person that Michael Jackson put on his enemy list, the person that I had never heard of, was threatening me and saying that unless I came out and said things explicitly against Kanye, he would effectively ruin my life. He said that he would take out a front.
So now this story of Kanye and Candace, like, this is new. I found this out when I was preparing for this. One, I mean, I haven't been paying attention to Kanye West since The Good Life with T-Pain. Okay, haven't been paying attention to him at all. Like, that was the last Kanye that I liked was part of that album. You know, Late Registration or whatever it was. What was that? Graduation. What I didn't know was Candace Owens and Kanye West have formed a friendship over some of the things that he has said about Jews. And then I guess she came to find out he was talking about specific Jewish people in the industry. So this is something that was new to me when I was researching this. But now let's get into the Rabbi Shmuley stuff or the extra footage that was missing in the previous clip.
Front page ad and smear me as an anti-Semite. And it wasn't just him. It was also his daughter.
Oh, so anyway, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this part. So that's where it started. So it didn't just start with Rabbi Shmuley and Candace Owens with this October 7th. That's not when this started. This predates that, as she's speaking about here.
Daughter were messaging me saying, don't mess with Jews. Very bizarre stuff. And they have not stopped, to be clear. And him and his daughter have consistently pulled clips from this show, taken them out of context, and tried to convince Jewish people that I hate them.
Candace Owens is gripped with a poisonous, almost pathological hatred of Jews. It's actually become very serious. It's actually almost frightening. When you see a woman like Candace Owens blood libeling the Jewish people, Candace Owens is losing it. Her anti-Semitism goes by the day.
There is something really, truly wrong with Candace Owens. You guys know that I dislike liars and anti-Semites more than anything in a whole entire world. And here we have a combination of both.
Candace Owens simply will not stop defending Kanye West. It's like an obsession. If she's unable to genuinely and authentically condemn what Kanye said, it says a lot about her.
If you come for us, we'll come back at you with everything that we have. I have heard from hundreds of you who feel so backstabbed and betrayed and disappointed in Candace Owens and others who defended, who enabled and encouraged Kanye West to continue spreading lies and venom and medieval Jewish hatred. Candace Owens posted a picture of my face and my name and my account to her over 4 million followers yesterday, many of whom are violence crazed and unhinged.
You really went after Candace Owens today. Why?
And that's a sliver of what she actually deserves. She is such a liar. She is an anti-Semite. She hates Jews. She has a thing with
incredible,
Jews.
isn't it? Like, weird.
And while Jews are being attacked around the world, she finds it really necessary to spend her time, use her platform to defend and protect Kanye West while she talks
A Hitler lover.
crap about
Kanye
Israel.
West is not just a anti-Semite. He's a Hitler lover. That's a different level altogether.
Literally. She is abominable. I actually am disgusted by her because she hates Israel. We are coming for you, Candace, on the media, on social media, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter.
The more she defends Kanye West, the more we're going to call her out.
Defending Kanye, we will come for you.
It's utterly ridiculous. It's insane. I know many Jewish people.
So that's the extra footage. That wasn't any other clip. Kanye West started this stuff, apparently, or her defense of Kanye West started this stuff. Now I read what he says here. Rabbi Shmuley says, this is all just coming to my attention. Did Candace Owens imply that I killed Michael Jackson and that a cabal of Jews is murdering African-American Hollywood celebrities? or did I get that wrong? Has she lost it completely? This is her and Kanye West. This is a picture. I didn't know this picture, but Kanye West's shirt says "White Lives Matter" and her shirt says "White Lives Matter." I mean, clowns, two clowns, Candace and Kanye for sure. Let's read what Rabbi Shmuley says here. Actually, let me make this bigger. American abomination Candace Owens, the new face of racism and anti-Semitism. Ben Shapiro, host Candace, is a new face of American racism and anti-Semitism. He tags the Daily Wire also. A self-hating black woman who joined the Kanye West, who joined with Kanye West to degrade the murder of George Floyd with her White Lives Matter provocation. I need to read this. Kanye said Floyd died of fentanyl rather than police choking him. She is the foremost defender of the Hitler-loving Kanye and a lunatic conspiracy monger who says Jews run, I think that's supposed to be pedophile sex rings in Hollywood. Cancel your subscription to the Daily Wire. Here's another. I think this is the shit. I don't want to go through all these videos. I think this is the full one that I might play, and then the other one is a short version. So let's listen to him.
Hi, everyone. I'm speaking to you from my home. When you walk into my living room, this is the first thing you see. Picture of Martin Luther King and then Elie Wiesel, my two great social justice heroes. Elie Wiesel, of course, because the greatest witness to the Holocaust and genocide, and Martin Luther King, because he was the greatest American of the 20th century who restored America to its founding principles that every human being is created in the image of God, and that all human beings are equal, and God loves them all equally. Muslims, Jews, atheists, agnostics, Buddhists, Hindus, Protestants, Muslims, Jews, conservatives, liberals. We in America have begun to hate each other, and people are fomenting hate. One of those people is Candace Owens, who's been on a rant in what can only be described as a complete nervous breakdown over the past 24 hours against me and my daughter, Rachel. She actually is a misogynist, Candace Owens, besides being an anti-Semite. I'll get to that in a moment. She calls my daughter a hag. She has to say that. She engages in the most disgusting ad hominem attacks. I had no issue with Candace Owens. I had met her once.
What?
My issue with Candace Owens began when Kanye West became America's foremost anti-Semite and said that he's going DEFCON 3 against the Jews and how much he loves Hitler. And the only person to defend him and say that it's okay for him to say this was Candace Owens. She was unrelenting. You're allowed to say that you love Hitler, and you can get away with it because Candace Owens will protect you. So we started calling her out on that, and then she just got worse and worse. Circumcision was an act of mutilation against babies.
Yeah, I think most people, if you don't know, to this comment, yeah, most people, I think he was born John. His father too. His father went somewhere, took a trip somewhere and learned about the historical figure Martin Luther, came back to the U.S. and changed his name and his son's name to Martin Luther King. He was not born Martin Luther King. No, he was not. Just a fun fact. Let's go.
Then October 7th came. And of course, she wouldn't even condemn the barbarity, the butchery, the gang rapes of Jewish women, the decapitations of Jewish babies. She said that she would have to think about it to see which side was right. Was it Hamas? Was it Israel? And then we knew
He's
this
just
woman
being disingenuous.
sees Jewish life as worthless. And of course we called her out on it because never again means never again. You know what her defense is? Her defense is that because she's black, anyone who calls out her anti-Semitism is a racist.
What?
Talk about engaging in the most disgusting identity politics. Now, the media is saying that I'm calling for the Daily Wire to fire her. I'm doing no such thing. Let me be clear. I don't control the Daily Wire. And I don't know what the legal ramifications are. What I'm saying is that Ben Shapiro, who wears a yarmulke and is a proud pro-Israel person, and the Daily Wire is supposed to be conservative, how does this all make sense? How do they have an anti-Semite on the air, someone who cannot even condemn Hamas?
That's a good question. Ben Shapiro was not able to answer that, though, because he had the same issue with her and had a public fight. We covered the shenanigans of that. Now we're gonna play maybe 2 minutes of this to close, and then we'll close this segment.
Careful, Candace. A lot of this is real defamation and libel. You're treading in pretty forbidden grounds, but I think your only defense, if this ever becomes a major legal issue, is that you're really betraying yourself as emotionally and intellectually unbalanced. But why has it come out in the direction of a global Jewish conspiracy, that we Jews control Hollywood, that we Jews are trying to bring down black people? Let me be clear. Candace Owens made her name because she was a conservative. Now she's engaging in pure identity politics. Why did I call her out over?
I'm so tired of the, why are you guys claiming that we control TV? It's a sheer provable fact. If you can just say, hey, the people who you run this company, are you Jewish? Yes. And then you do this, you kind of do a check of all the people in power that's running companies, and a lot of them are Jewish. That'll be like saying me pointing out that most of the NBA is black. That's a physical fact. That's a physical fact. That the majority of people in the NBA is black. The majority of people in the NFL is black. So me stating that particular fact doesn't make me a racist. So let's continue.
Her love for Kanye West, not because she was defending America's foremost anti-Semite, not because she was defending someone who said he's going DEFCON 3 against the Jews, not because she was defending someone who combined a swastika with a Magen David, not because she was defending someone who said he loves Hitler. Loves Hitler. Remember, Hitler murdered 10,000 Jews a day and gassed 1.5 million Jewish children. No, I came after her because she's black. Talk about the most disgusting excuses for your vile behavior. Candace, this man is up in my living room every single day at the top of that list, Martin Luther King, that you would disgrace.
That totally looks like a picture he just pinned up there. I guess, but he is worshiping the whitewash version of Martin Luther King.
At the top of that list, Martin Luther King.
Like a lot of you said in the chat, Martin Luther King, he would have hated Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King would have hated his guts. Martin Luther King was pro-Palestinian. Martin Luther King was anti-military. Martin Luther King would be against the genocide that's happening right now.
Luther King, that you would disgrace the African-American community by saying that being black is an excuse to be an anti-Semite. Don't use your blackness as an excuse to be an anti-Semite.
Yeah, she disgraced the black community a long time ago before this. Like I said, I don't take her seriously at all. Even this reform version of Candace Owens, this polished version of her, I don't take her seriously whatsoever. So, but I think we're going to stop there. I'm going to play this Robert De Niro video. And I think a lot of you have already seen it. Is Robert De Niro with his Trump derangement? I must say, De Niro by far, I don't know why this one's here. Let's take that one out. De Niro is one of the people who has the biggest Trump derangement tumor. If we're calling it a tumor, like he's terrible. But biggest person with Trump derangement syndrome, Robert De Niro. It's a 1-minute video. Let's listen.
Nothing at all, nothing redeemable in him. And we have to, and whoever the people are who want to vote for him, and there look like intelligent people around there. Somebody, for some reason, it can't be. It cannot be. If he wins the election, you won't be on the show anymore. He'll come looking for me. There'll be things that happen that none of us can imagine. That's what happens in that kind of a dictatorship, which is what he says. Let's believe him. Take him at his word.
I did from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, I said from the very beginning, this guy is never going to concede power, and he still hasn't.
No.
He still hasn't. He still admitted he lost the last election, and he advertises that he will go on. He says he's been cheated out of one term, so maybe we should get rid of a president only gets 2 terms thing.
Nothing at all. Nothing.
Okay, so I wanted to let it play, and now I'm going to play it again and add the start and stop and add commentary. So let's listen again to Robert De Niro, and it's disappointing because as an actor, I liked Robert De Niro. A lot of his movies I liked, but the real Robert De Niro is not a person I would like to meet at all. I would never like to know this particular person. When it comes to Trump, I remember he is I'm going to say by far, I'm trying to think of another actress. I remember on an award show, every time he has the opportunity, he's Trump this, Trump that, and he is one who completely buys in to that democracy is going to end argument.
Nothing at all. Nothing redeemable in him. And we have to, and whoever the people are who want to vote for him, and they look like intelligent people around there. Somebody, for some reason, it can't be. It cannot be. If he wins the election, you won't be on the show anymore. He'll come looking for me.
Just think about what they're saying. So a president can remove people off the television? Just think of the world that they are creating out of thin air. That's going to happen if Donald Trump is elected. How are they able to make this argument when Donald Trump has been elected before? And none of these things happened. It's just astonishing. Now, don't get me wrong. He's terrible, but he's not any more terrible than Joe Biden. The policies are the same. Israel's the same. Donald Trump is going to get in and continue the genocide. It's the same. Both of them don't want health care. Both of them want to keep wages down. Both of them are going to be supplying the military-industrial complex. Both of them is going to be fine with the CIA.
There'll be things that happen that none of us can imagine.
Like a genocide? How about supporting a proxy war? Because we didn't imagine that. How about being in a war in the Middle East, in the Indo-Pacific with China, and against Russia?
That's what happens in that kind of a dictatorship, which is what he says. Let's believe him. Take him at his word.
I did from the beginning.
Yeah.
I mean, I said from the very beginning, this guy is never going to concede power, and he still hasn't.
No.
He still hasn't. He still admitted he lost.
Concede power doesn't mean you have to publicly say it. Concede power is just he left. I'm not elected anymore. I left the White House. I'm living back in wherever he's living at. But because he doesn't say the words, and they're still harping on this 4 years later, they're still talking about, I hate when they do this. Can you say that Joe Biden was legitimately elected in 2020? What? That's where you're starting from?
Election. And he advertises that he will go on. He says he's been cheated out of one term. So maybe we should get rid of a president only gets 2 terms thing.
Nothing at all. Nothing redeemable.
So anyway, that was kind of a fun, not so serious last 2 segments here. Let me make sure I covered everything. De Niro deranged, Bernie the Cug, Biden damage control. Did I watch this full video? I didn't watch the full video of Pramila Jayapal. We just watched a snippet. Tom Perez, shame, Abby and Galloway, indoctrination ritual, the Biden doctrine by, I think, so we covered everything. The hot mic we covered, normal Finkelstein, clown fight. So see how much, just a lot of stuff. And I wasn't able to cover Haiti in trouble, Sudan hungry, NATO has Nazis, weaponizing rape for Zionists. So these will be stories that will be Wednesday. So stay tuned Wednesday, I will be covering these stories. Which one is this again? Just so I can remember. Actually, I can play this as an outro video. So I think I'll play this as an outro video here. But first, and now this outro video is, and I'll read it for you. It says, was NATO founded to protect freedom? If so, why did it include Nazi war criminals among its ranks? Rather than denazifying West Germany, the U.S. utilized Hitler's senior bureaucrats and fascists to establish the institutions of today's democratic West. That's going to be the video we're going to watch as an outro. But let me read the super chats first. I'll start at the bottom. I can't name Biden's prime donor. Can you? Who was his number one donor? I'm trying to remember. I just know that I remember Biden had the most billionaires supporting him. Joe Biden had that crown. I remember that. I do know I don't know if they're the top, but I do know some of the top ones. I know healthcare supports him. I know Wall Street supports Biden. There's another industry. Is it the tech industry that supports him? There's 3 industries that are big supporters of Joe Biden. I think it is tech. I think it is. This one, it pisses me off when I hear this phrase, too many civilians have been killed by Israel. Since when were there some acceptable Palestinian deaths at the hands of the cellular colonial project? That is a great point. Meaning, right now it's too many, but when we were killing 5,000, that wasn't too many. Point taken. And I didn't shout out the name earlier, but Warren West, thank you for the super chat. And then the name here, ARJ 1997, one of our regulars. I'll read this one. I think Nick read it, but just in case. Two-state solution equals continue a Jewish ethno-state. And that's query. I think that's how you say it. This one, for the excellent scroll across the bottom screen. Thank you. You're talking about the scrolling thing. We have a lot of things that scroll at the bottom here. I'll run through it. So, for example, we have our website. Make sure you check out our website here. At our website is where you can get our merchandise if you would like. You can join our Substack. Join our Substack, just Revolutionary Blackout on Substack. You can go to the link that you see at the bottom, or you can just type in Revolutionary Blackout in Substack. Google that, and we will come up. You'll get notifications on when we go live and when we send clips. Here's our email. If you wanted to check, email us for any reason you need. Info, for those listening only, info@revblacknetwork.com is the email. And the best way to support us is through our Patreon. Become a Patreon member. It's $3, I think, is our lowest plan. So that's $36 a year. If you can afford that, not everybody can, but if you can afford that and you want to contribute, help with, for example, contributing to our editor, we pay her equally out of the Patreon contribution. So she gets an equal stake in that. And these are some of the graphics that she made, just so you know, some of the graphics that she's made in the past. Check those out. So support our Patreon if you want to support us and our editor. And let's see, any other scrolling items I can put up there? Yes, hit that like button, get us to 800 likes. And then here is our merch shout out. Our NATO is a terrorist organization. Merchandise is our second most popular behind our regular logo merchandise. So NATO, you can get it on the mug. NATO is a terrorist organization. You can get it on a tote bag. You can get it on a t-shirt, a tank top, an ace shirt, a sweatshirt. Any of those sound appealing. Visit us on our website and go to our merch store to see all of that. All right, I think I've come to an end. If you want me to put your comment up, make sure to include the state and city you're in. And if you're international, let us know what country you're in. So if you want to make a comment about Joe Biden sucks, and I'm not voting for him. I'm in Long Beach, California. If you want to make a comment about Candace Owens, man, that segment about Candace Owens was a doozy. I'm in Germany. So if you put your location, I'll make sure to put your comment up. Let's listen to this final video. It's almost 3 minutes on the history of NATO and how Nazis were a part of that founding, the founding people for NATO.
Germany is still discussing banning the neo-fascist AfD, but it might be a little late for that. What's the use in banning a party where now for decades you've enabled Nazis to fill positions in the police, in the army, and in government? They are fully integrated across the system, and not just in low-down positions. In fact, for decades, former Nazis and German war criminals served at the highest ranks of the German state. Yes, after World War II, Britain and the US built up the West German state using former Nazis across the board. In fact, the first West German intelligence service agency was headed by the CIA, who installed a former Nazi general as the head of the agency and named it after him, the Jacqueline organization. The most famous rehabilitated Nazi, though, was Adolf Hitler, and he was actually Hitler's chief of staff and helped plan the Nazi invasions of Poland, Norway, Denmark, and France. After the war, he took over the newly established West German army, the Bundeswehr, and in 1961 was made the chairman of the NATO Military Committee. Yes, the same NATO that supposedly defends and promotes Western democracy. And with that, you see how this hypocrisy isn't isolated to Germany. While the rise of the horror is worrying liberals across the West, it's important to point out that this is a grave they have done. NATO is a good example. Here's a list. I'll start with the ones that have been awarded the Iron Cross, the Nazi military's highest award, and he then went on to take top positions in NATO. Let's start with Johannes Steinhoff, who was made chairman of the NATO Military Committee, among other NATO positions he held beforehand. Then we have the role of NATO's Commander-in-Chief, Allied Forces of Central Europe, one of the most important positions in the Cold War with the Soviet Union. For decades, it was headed by former soldiers of the Nazi Third Reich, including Ernst Böhmer, Karl Schnell, Franz Josef Schulze, and last but not least, Ferdinand von Senger und Ettelin, recipient of the German Cross and Gold. Today, defenders of the West will tell you they had to bring in these guys because they were the only ones who had the skills and experience to do the job of keeping the West safe. What they mean here is they were the ones with the most skills and experience killing communists. In fact, throughout history, liberals, or what Lenin called social imperialists, have teamed up with the most reactionary sections of the ruling class, including fascists, to crush genuinely revolutionary democratic movements, because such movements threaten their privilege too. This is why many who identify as social democrats today are cheering on genocide against Palestinians. What's the lesson? Don't fall for their anti-fascist posturing and get organized to build a genuine anti-fascist revolutionary movement.